This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Come on, Rick, come on. We call it the place to be. The place to be, yes, it's the place to be. Then I shall be there.
It is contagious. It is the place to be, and we are live each and every Monday.
Do you actually need a camera for tout, or is it like part of the program?
Tomorrow got no place to be.
Yeah, I like Big Dick myself.
I was just the man you see and the place to be.
Do you listen at all when I speak on the show?
I'm not the one who thrives on whining about carriages that are 3 inches from my fucking car.
So if it's too much for you and your big cock of the walk, Knights of Columbus fat cat,
when does it end,
to bring
JR?
the carriage back to the fucking thing, then what do you want? What do you want?
When does it end?
You're making the poor guy making minimum wage while you're sitting there with our Mento going through the coffer. Party people in the place to be.
5 years. 5 years! We've been doing podcasts. And we have this. This is trash.
It's not Austin in LA. It's not Cabana in Chicago. It's not Conrad down in Alabama. Place to Be Nation presents Scott Criscolo and JT Rosero. This is the Place to Be Podcast.
To do worse than Josh Richer.
It's time for Rumble! It's time for the Royal Rumble! Participants include the immortal Hulk Hogan, the Hitman Bret Hart, Animal from Legion of Doom, the Undertaker, the Tugboat, the model Rick Martel, Mr. Perfect, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Earthquake, Saba Simba, the British Bulldog, Paul Roma, Tito Santana, Butch the Bushwhacker, Jake the Snake Roberts, the Warlord, Demolition Smash, Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich, Hawk of Legion of Doom, Superfly, Luke the Bushwhacker, the Anvil, Demolition Crush, Dino Bravo, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Hercules, Shane Douglas, Nasty Boy Brian Knob, Haku, and the Macho King Randy Savage. It's every man for himself in the Royal Rumble.
You wanna sit more on my living room floor? Play Nintendo with Seasonino. Pick up my phone, say Papa not home. Sex all night, mad head in the moon. Spin my beat, smoke all my weed. Tattoo on TT saying B.I.G. Now check it, you wanna be my man squeeze, baby? Don't you? You wanna give me what I need, baby? Won't you? Picture life as my wife. Just think, full left, make fat exit.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to a great episode of the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I'm your co-host, Justin Rosero, coming to you live here on this Monday evening inside the PTB studios. And joining me, as always, is my PIC, Mr. Scott Criscolo. Scott, how are you?
Good evening, JR. Good evening, Place to Be Nation. Welcome to episode 554 of the longest-running episodic motherfucking golf standard with the whole family tonight. 46 from 6 bills. Who'da thunk it? Good evening, JR. You sound well, as always. Burn some calories tonight?
Yeah, it was hot. Definitely sweated. It was like I went in the pool with my shirt on. It was good, though. It actually wasn't as hot as I thought it was going to be because the real feel was like 103 at one point today. But we started later, and it was shady, and it wasn't too bad. So, but I definitely, it was. I mean, you sweat for sure, but it wasn't as like I didn't feel like I got heat stroke or anything like I was fearing. So,
right, yeah, I know, right. And all the humidity has been quite high, but the humidity is going to be hot in Miami tonight. For that is where we are going to be. And why don't we bring in our the third member of our team tonight, our special guest.
Speaking of Miami, he's down that area right now. He is, I guess, the host. I don't know if that's still a thing at the PTBN e-ticket attraction. But if not, he's here tonight with us, Mr. Jason Sherman. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Theme parks aren't really a thing right now, unfortunately. I mean, yes, they're open, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it may be a bad look too to like be out promoting,
Exactly.
Hyping up going to a theme park right now.
And they just canceled Halloween Horror Nights this year, so I'm a little gutted about that. But Ready to talk some 1991 Royal Rumble.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get you back on track. Good to have you here. Scott, I was a little misled. I misled our listeners, and I apologize. I thought we were going to be back with some Herb Kunz tonight. It's actually going to be our next episode. He took quite this layoff here into early January, or the archive is missing. But we'll be able to do at least one in our next episode. But I've been asking all our guests, Jason, in lieu of actually having fresh Herb tidbits, is there any of your favorites from the past year that you would like to talk about?
I do really love whenever he boasts the CNWA.
He was so hyped.
Whatever that is.
He was so hyped for that promotion.
Oh my God! Really maybe he thought there was going to be an invasion on this night.
Could have been.
Yeah, but
the snowbirds do come to South Florida quite often, so it could have happened.
That's true.
That's true. There really isn't any 85-degree place in Saskatoon or Medicine Hat or Moose Jaw,
especially not in January.
No, that's for sure. And I always found it odd, JR, that Kunz took this time off right before like a major show. I mean, this isn't a joke we're doing tonight. This is big show. So
looking back at it, I really think he likely was away from school for winter break and did not have the probably the internet dial-up connection or whatever at home. So that's usually been his trend. So that's my guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Because I think he missed some time in the summer too. So
yeah,
I think that's probably part of it.
Prodigy.
I wanted to throw a little PTB podcast trivia, Scott. Do you remember the importance or the high point of our Royal Rumble 91 Vintage Vault review in the original run that we did of this?
Well, if he doesn't have the answer, I do.
Okay, Scott, do you know? Or just we'll go to Jason?
The first Rumble 91. Let's see. That would probably be episode, somewhere in the 80s, probably 90s.
Nope.
Probably right before 100.
Way before that.
Was it episode 50?
It was in the 40s.
Oh, okay.
And Jason, what happened at the end of that episode?
Something about a little Celine Dion and Titanic theme.
Yeah,
because someone was about to go on a cruise.
He was about to go on a cruise. So Scott, that was the episode before Scott departed and missed the pipe bomb while being sailing out in the high seas.
That's right, the pipe bomb cruise.
I think it was like 49-ish, 48. It was somewhere in there. It was right around 50.
Here's another little PTBN fact. Not that anyone would care, but this is actually the first show I searched on iTunes and found of you guys in late 2012.
There you go. Wow. You were that late in? I feel like you've been around longer.
It had to have been 2011, 2012, somewhere around there for sure.
Yeah. Well, either way, you're an OG, Jason. I believe this is your first Vintage Vault as well, isn't it?
It is.
All right.
Are we counting my bomb at the trivia?
Which one? Body press or the trivia?
the trivia.
Okay. We'll count them all. But no, this is your official appearance, so welcome aboard. All right, so no Herb. Scott, anything going on elsewhere? Probably not, since it's a pay-per-view, right?
No, technically the official number was 47. Was the original 1991 round. July 14th, 2011. 11 days later was episode 48, and apparently I was angry. What a shock! It says Angry Scott, and it says CM Punk, Triple H, Money in the Bank, and Angry Scott. That's the title of episode. I have to listen to that now to see what the fuck I was pissed. It says Scott's
I think you were pissed because you missed.
Yes. I was responding to my critics that I should have jumped off the fucking boat and swam home.
Yeah, something about Triple H probably.
Yeah, most likely.
Or it could have been Lakers related. Who knows?
So
2011.
It was in July 2011. So
it might have been the Lakers because that was the year I think that was when they got swept by Dallas and
that was the whole thing.
Lamar Odom. Yeah, Lamar Odom.
I think it was it might have been Triple H related. I feel like it was something to do with that. Do you remember, Jason?
Triple H.
I don't.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to it. But anyway, of course, as Mr. Sherman mentioned, tonight here on the Place B podcast, we begin our 7th year of not the 7th year overall. Of course, we're on 9 years, but the 7th year of our rewatch, JR, 1991.
Yes.
I feel like we've been really excited for this year because it's your pretty much first full year as a wrestling fan, and a lot of memorable shows on this. We're going to go all over the place in 1991 with our shows, the Garden, pay-per-views, and we may even do a show on the other side of the pond down the line, perhaps. Perhaps. But we open with, as Mr. Sherman said, the 1991 Royal Rumble. First pay-per-view of the year, January 19th, from the Myrena, not the Arena, the Myrena, the Miami Arena in Miami, Florida. Second consecutive year we are in the Sunshine State. As I mentioned, 1990, the year before, Tony and Jesse with his Mickey Mouse ears, we were in Orlando. This year we are in Miami, and I think it would be our last Rumble in Florida. Well, for 5 years, I guess. No, of course, no house shows or anything. Everybody is in Miami, so no house shows. No Coons. Any other show tidbits, JR? Anything throughout the month?
Yeah,
I mean, besides like announcements of guys and things like that.
Yeah, we get a few things, and I will admit, I think we might have said this in our last episode, but just to level set. So you mentioned, Scott, we're entering our 7th year of the reboot. We started in January of '85, and through 1990, we have discussed 889 matches on this show since late 2016 when we rebooted. So quite the run. And so here we go. On December 29th, Superstars. Gene Oakland conducted an interview with Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan, with Slaughter unveiling a pair of boots personally sent to him by Saddam Hussein, saying he'd wear the boots during his match with the Ultimate Warrior at the Rumble. The Nasty Boys made their TV debut, defeating Sonny Blaze and Jim Evans when Sags pinned Blaze, and of course the Nasties managed by Jimmy Hart. And I don't know if I ever heard about this one. January 1st, 1991, Bobby Heenan was arrested the day after he collapsed on an airplane. Police found 48 grams of marijuana and narcotic paraphernalia in his baggage. I don't think I've ever heard about this Bobby Heenan arrest. Have you guys?
Me neither. No.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, no.
Bobby be the last guy that I would think of that would actually have weed on him. It's very strange.
I don't know. Pretty laid back, I guess. January 5th, Superstars, during a segment, a vignette from Ted DiBiase and Virgil was shown where they were in Texas. DiBiase was wearing a cowboy hat. He threw it to the floor and stomped on it. After he got his shoes dirty, he made Virgil clean off the dirt. And then on January 11th, at a house show at the Nassau Coliseum, Roddy Piper and Kerry Von Erich defeated Mr. Perfect and Virgil, and Von Erich pinned Perfect. Perfect and Virgil argued after the match, with Virgil eventually decking Perfect. On January 12th, Superstars, Ted DiBiase defeated Danny Brazil by submission. After the bout, DiBiase cut a promo on he and Virgil taking on the Rhodes family at Royal Rumble. He said he could make Virgil do anything he wanted. Moments later, he threw money to the floor and slapped Virgil, told him to pick it up. Virgil said no until DiBiase reminded him about his family. DiBiase then whispered something in Virgil's ear, which made Virgil pick up the money. So a lot of heat pushing forward here. January 19th, earlier this day on Superstars, Honky Tonk Man made his final appearance for the next 6 years as a color commentator. We talked about that quite a bit in our last episode, Scott, when we went through the tapings.
Yep.
Also, Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan were guests on Brother Love Show regarding Slaughter's match with the Ultimate Warrior. Segment was interrupted by a special bulletin where Sean Mooney read a statement from Jack Tunney saying that the views of Slaughter and Adnan were not those of any Arab Americans or other Arab descent. Slaughter and Adnan stand alone in their beliefs, and their beliefs are not those of the WWF. So, laying it on a little thick. And finally on Challenge, which I guess aired earlier that day, sometimes it was on Saturday in some markets, featured Gene Oakland conducted a podium interview with DiBiase and Virgil regarding the upcoming match of Dusty and Dustin, during which DiBiase said no one should ever feel sorry for Virgil with the way he treats him. Also, we had a dark match on this evening. Jerry Sags of the Nasty Boys defeated Sam Houston. Still around, I guess.
Random.
All right, and here we go, inside the arena, the first show of 1991, our fourth Rumble on record. We start with a picture of the American flag and a recording of the national anthem, really playing up the Americana stuff that we're going to be raging all through the first portion of 91. Vince, of course, does his classic rundown of the entrance and the undercard as always. Gorilla Monsoon and Roddy Piper then welcome us in and set the stage. A lot of jingoism for Piper. He's very into the Americana stuff, and he's firing that up right away. And we get right to our opener, which is a pretty interesting tag match as the Rockers take on the new Orient Express. WrestleMania 6 rematch, and we'll see. Hopefully this one goes a little bit better than that one did, if you recall. Now, we've talked about Kato, right? He was on our last show, Scott, I believe.
Yes. I think he was, let's see.
Maybe not. I feel like we talked about him.
I think you guys did.
Do we talk about him?
Actually, well, they haven't been on since...
Were they on the main event? When were they last on? Well, Survivor Series was the new
Sato was still there.
Okay, so I think this might be the first time because they weren't. Yeah, they weren't at. We might have alluded to it.
Right. I think you mentioned Paul Diamond in the last episode.
Yeah, I think you mentioned him in the notes, JR, but I don't think we've actually.
Okay, yeah. You know, I think it was in the pre-show note, so we don't have to get too deep into it. But Sato obviously left went back. Yeah, I think we talked about all this.
Yeah, no, we talked about that. Yeah,
Paul Diamond repackaged as Kato or Kato.
Kato
under the mask. All right, so WrestleMania 6 rematch, the reuniting of Bad Company. So of course these teams did feud in the AWA. Piper says he saw Orient Express gnawing on raw fish 15 minutes ago. Good pop for the Rockers, who are really aimless here after the fake title win in the fall. Orient's attack after the bell, or before the bell, dumping Marty outside the double up on Sean, hit a big back body drop. Marty returns to the Rockers' clean house, sending the Orient Express to the floor. Rockers fight side with stereo topes, and the crowd's all revved up. We reset with Marty and Kato, and Marty controls of the headlock and then head scissors. This leads to a trade-off of near falls into a reset and a cheap shot from Tanaka that allows Kato to take over. Orient Express end up colliding, and Marty goes to the arm of Tanaka. Sean tags in, he goes to the same. Piper talks about how the Orient Express struggled to communicate because they work through Fuji, whereas the Rockers only have each other. Tanaka gets a flying forearm, grabs a chin lock, and Sean battles right back and clunks their heads together. He works over Tanaka. Sean grabs a sleeper, but the ref gets tied up with Marty, and Kato gets involved. He wipes out Sean from behind. Tanaka breaks out some strikes, but Sean comes back, hits a great blind moonsault on Kato. Things break down, and all four go at it again, leading to some great counters that end in a double dropkick. That clears out the Orient Express. The Rockers hit stereo splashes off the top to the floor, and the crowd is all fired up for this one. Back inside, the Rockers work over Kato, including a nice Sean delayed suplex for 2. Orient Express sneak behind the ref and take Sean down. Get to work, including Fuji jabbing Sean in the throat with his cane. Orients take turns working through some strikes into a Tanaka nerve hold. The crowd really rallies Sean after a fake out. Sean works free, but the beating continues. Kato shoots Sean hard to the corner. He flips up and over to the apron. Tanaka hits him with a sidekick. Orients hit stereo sidekicks, but Sean catches Tanaka and spikes his face to the mat. Orients come in and try to use their belt, but Sean dives on it and they clunk together like the Three Stooges. Sean makes a tag and the fans explode as Marty comes in and cleans house, gets a power slam for 2, and then things break down with all 4. We get a double team for the Orients for another 2 count. Rockers did a double sidekick on Kato. They set up a rocket launcher, but Tanaka kicks Marty and Sean falls outside in a really hard bump. Kato slingshots Marty into Tanaka chop, and then after showing us that move, they try it again, but this time, in one of the most smooth yet convoluted finishes of all time, Sean punches both Orient Express. That forces the slingshot. Tanaka is bent over for the punch. Marty sunset flips out of the slingshot and rolls up Tanaka for the win. Tremendous finish to a wonderful tag match. Smooth as butter across the board. Both teams worked their styles to perfection, crisp and clean. Made all the sense without any of the bullshit. Rockers get the win on pay-per-view. Atone for WrestleMania 6 with a win, and atone for that sluggish affair in Toronto. Scott, of course, everyone knows about this match. It's a wonderful opener. It was one of the best pay-per-view openers in WWF history for a long time before the overall quality of wrestling picked up in the late 90s, 2000s. But for a long time, it stood as a gold standard match for them. 4 stars and one of the best tags we've seen in a while.
You are exactly correct. 4.5 stars for me. Your match time is 19:14. Of course, JR, I'll always call this the chicken tenders and pizza match. But I think that what differs here clearly compared to when they wrestled in the past was the switch to Paul Diamond. No disrespect to Sato. He's a tremendous wrestler. But obviously Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond had the chemistry. And the 4 of them together, we saw, I mean, you could have put that match in 1987 at the, St. Paul Civic Center or whatever. They were amazing. They flowed well. Maybe there was like 1 or 2 moves that were a little flumpy, but that kind of, fell flat. I think it was like a roll up that didn't totally roll up. Other than that, they were very, very smooth. And I'll say this all night, other than the over the top jingoism, and look, it was the tone of the show, so you really can't fault him for it. I thought Gorilla and Piper were really on. I know we've kind of given Piper crap since he's taken over for Jesse, and he had struggled early, like SummerSlam 90, he's just not good. Survivor Series, he was a little bit better. I really feel like he got in a groove on this night and does his best to really analyze matches better than he used to, instead of just yelling and making dumb jokes, Piper-esque jokes. He does still throw those in there, but at the same time, he really, and for Piper, who's not a tag team guy, he really got what was going on and really kept people engaged in his analysis. And Gorilla was Gorilla, as he always is in the big stage, but top to bottom, they really told an amazing story. I mean, even for a for a WWF pay-per-view and a show in which you're going to have a long match at the bottom, to be given almost 20 minutes in the opener speaks volumes about what the guys backstage, say what you want about the urban legend of Vince hating tag teams, but he gave these guys a ton of time to start the show, and they really, Jason, really mapped out a fun beginning to end technical masterpiece from beginning to end without really missing any beats.
This match is what I love about tag team wrestling and what tag team wrestling should be. We didn't really mention at the top of the show. I was at this event live. It was my very first show I ever went
I meant to mention that. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
Jason was at the show live.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, you probably guys wondering why we're doing a pay-per-view without D'Amato. Well, here's why. There you go.
Funny story was I got there after this match happened as the Rockers were making their way to the back. But I loved this match. It would have been my number 100 in my top 100 if my list actually got submitted and didn't cancel after I was about 3/4 of the way through, and I didn't have the rest of the list saved. So my list never got submitted, but it would have been my number 100. I also do have it at 4.5 stars. I love this match so much. The finish was fantastic. Sean selling that hot tag, you don't see that ever now. Maybe when DIY and the Revival had their series, you saw something similar, but besides that, you don't see that ever now. Actually, we were talking about Piper in his commentary. He had my favorite line of the night, talking about Fuji, that he's seen more ceilings than Michelangelo.
That was a good line, yes.
that was a very good line. But yeah, with Tanaka and Paul Diamond working together the way they do and the way they did, it kind of makes you wonder why they didn't put those two together in the first place.
I'll never understand it. Like, I don't get. I mean, I guess they just wanted to bring Sato in for whatever reason, and figured if they were doing this Japanese team, he was a better fit. But I don't never get why they didn't just bring in Bad Company. They could have still had Fuji manage them. You know what I mean? Like, it made no sense to me. They were known. They were really good. They could have brought Sato in a different role if they wanted to, and put him with Fuji. If, could have done that as a singles instead of Diamond. It was an odd decision from the start.
Dude, it's funny. I watched this the other day to catch up on it, and my fiance actually watched it with me, and she was talking about Kato and Kato's mask. Said it looked like Spider-Man's mask. I didn't think it did, but
it looks more Deadpoolish than Spider-Man to me.
Oh yeah, that too. Well, the eye sockets is more Spider-Man-ish, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, it is a great opener. It's the start of a couple things for me in this year. It's the start of arguably maybe the Rockers' best in-ring year from a big match perspective.
100% agree.
We've seen really good stuff from them. Some of the stuff we discovered on MSGs and whatnot, Scott. But I think as far as their big matches and big spots, this may be their best year, as Sean has really come in a long way, and Marty, of course, is great. It's also the start of what I believe ends up being one of the hottest pay-per-view crowd years that they've had as well. And I know we've chronicled this when we did these shows before, Scott, and it's always something that stood out to me is these crowds in 91 are fantastic. And it's, when you think about, I guess we talk about this more toward the end of the show, but when you think about how much we've bitched about the roster and the lack of depth in the back end of 90, it feels like suddenly they've found out how to rebuild the roster. I feel like by 91, it's like the magic beans get poured into the cup or something. I don't know. All of a sudden, the roster is a little bit deeper and the crowds are heated up and there's some excitement around the product again. It's odd. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they just struck gold with the Americana stuff, or it was just Hogan being back in the main event picture. Whatever it is, it feels like they've really been rejuvenated here as 91 kicked off.
Yeah, when you look at we'll get more into the roster when we get to the Rumble match, but even the last two, we sat here and we trashed the crap out of those early fall MSG house shows. But then we did November and December, and we're like, wow, where the hell are all these guys come from? And they were there all along. They just were never matched up right. And we got some pretty decent. We had some pretty decent matchups in November and in December. We had a couple stinkers. But we had a lot. I'm looking at our rankings, and we had a bunch of 3s and some 3.5s, and we've had some really good, solid matches in the last 2 months of shows. Where they came from, God only knows, because we were looking at some real stink. I think a lot of it had to do with the lack of Warrior challenger depth. I think that was so glaring that we kind of got stuck on it without really looking deep. And then, a lot of the fluff left. I mean, Hockey and some of these guys that really haven't been that important since, mid-'89 were just kind of getting in the way. And they get stuck in MSG shows, so they can get the paycheck. But, they'd be looking at the lights anyway, like Michelangelo. But, yeah, as we move on tonight and as we get into, like, the first 4 or 5 months of 91, we're really going to see that the roster really wasn't that bad. And not just with repackaged guys who we'll see a couple of in the Rumble, but just young guys, too, coming from, NWA. Well, at this point, it's 91, they'd be WCW. And, just kind of rejuvenating, kind of like they did at the end of 86, beginning of 87, when like the Moroccos and those kind of guys were fleshed out because they were kind of at the end of their rope, and then would come back and have to be either repackaged or just left, But anyway, it definitely came out of nowhere. That all of a sudden, wow, these matches are really good. Where all these really good guys come from? Maybe it was matchups, maybe the wrong road agents on the wrong shows. I mean, it could be a combination of anything. But anyway, we can continue on that topic as we move ahead. But yeah, it's amazing how, things just look so much better for WWF in terms of the overall talent pool when right after WrestleMania 6 and we thought everything was great and Warrior was great and everything. And then we looked and went, where the hell is everybody? So it's weird how things have kind of evolved in the last 7 months. But anyway, great opener. And it's good that they kind of repackaged Orient Express because they could have been a much better team over the last year if they were better, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and especially during a time where they could use top challengers for parts later in the year. Like if they had come in as Bad Company and had some heat around them, they beat the Rockers at SummerSlam, at Mania, maybe give them something better at SummerSlam than the Duggan Volkov shit, and then maybe they're the fall contenders instead of Rhythm and Blues, and have a little more heat. All right, Sean Mooney's backstage with Randy Savage as he's the number one contender. He doesn't care who wins tonight. He's got a commitment from Sergeant Slaughter that says if he wins, he'll be number one contender. Savage says he wants that same commitment from the Warrior, and he'll get it in seconds because Sensational Sherri is about to bait him. So we go to the arena where Sherri is leading Mean Gene to the podium. She is here to make a public challenge to the Warrior. Sarge has promised a title shot if he wins tonight. Being a brave, honorable man, she has no doubt that Sarge will grant the promise he made to the Kingdom, and she hopes Warrior is just as honorable as everyone thinks he is, but she has some doubts. She tells Warrior that if he's brave and honorable, he should come out right now and accept the challenge, but she thinks Warrior's yellow, not brave. She keeps calling him out, and eventually the champion obliges. Warrior has quite the USA jacket on, by the way. It's a leather coat, all flagged up. Sherri asks if Warrior will grant Savage a title shot if he retains, and Warrior just stares at her. Sherri starts to rub his chest and flirt with him, saying she's admired him for a long time, looks into his big hazel eyes, and wondered what it would be like to kiss his lips, what it would be like to touch his chest, which she does. She strips his jacket off, talks about always admiring him and his broad, strong back. She wants to know what it'd be like to see the wind blow through his wonderful hair. She asks again about the title match, but Warrior just stands there stoically. She pecks a kiss, and then he starts to smile, and she's getting a little hot and heated over that, saying the most thrilling thing that's ever happened to her. She drops to her knees, and now the crowd is waking up because what could be coming next? She keeps asking for the title match to show how honorable and brave Warrior is. Warrior smiles at the crowd. I think we're getting a little Ed Ferrara and TNA action with Francine right now. And then he starts to shake. He spits, gets in her face, and screams, "No!" Warrior heads off as Sherri melts down to the ground. Savage destroys the locker room, runs out pissed, but he's too late. Great segment. It ties shit together and also sets up a through line for the night because Savage is now pissed that Warrior will not commit to him, that he will grant him the title match as Sergeant Slaughter has promised. So we'll see where that goes. But this is pretty ballsy stuff for 91. And again, we talk about tone setting for the year. Another tone that gets set is a little bit more of an edgy product in 91 than we've seen in the last few years. And it creeps in here where Sherri's basically seducing Warrior on pay-per-view to try and beg him for a title shot for Savage. Jason, was as a young dude in the crowd, were you picking up on any of what was going on here at the time?
Dude, I was 9 years old. I had no idea what was going on. But watching it yesterday, it was kind of hard to watch. But that being said, it was fun. But I will say this: when I think of Americana, I do not think of Ultimate Warrior.
It's weird that they kind of shoehorn it in because of the feud
with
Slaughter. So he almost had to adopt it, even though it's not even a feud. It's just a match. They've really had no interaction very little, if any, on TV. Like Slaughter was just announced as number one contender. They've cut promos on each other, but they really haven't had any kind of interaction. It's an odd build. It's just the hype is all on Slaughter's heat and the boots, pretty much, and Warrior's champion.
Was there anything with Savage before this night either, or did it all start at this night
with Warrior?
Yeah.
Oh no, that had started. Savage issued the challenge. What, a Survivor Series?
Yeah. I don't even remember that.
Yeah. He did that podium promo. And I think on TV there's been build toward them having an issue, and they fought on the circuit. Warrior Slaughter literally had like no interaction, I don't think so.
And they announced that title match because they were talking about it at the December MSG House show. So that title match was locked in for weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. Watching this as a 17-year-old, this was an eye-opener, to say the least. I mean, the shit, like when I was watching it with my friends, I mean the rubbing of the chest and everything, and I'm like, all right, well, she's a female manager. He's, Warrior's a pretty good looking dude, and he's world champion. All right, it's fine. When she dropped to her knees, I look at my buddy and I go, what is she about to do? If she starts undoing his pants, I don't know what the fuck's going on, because even for 1991, her rubbing him was like, oh, this is a little like like we think about hot managers at this time, and we always think of Elizabeth, who obviously isn't around at the moment, but over the last few years, dating back to 85 when she debuted, she was like she was first lady of wrestling. She was pretty smoking. But like we never saw her do those kinds of things. She wasn't sensual. She wasn't saucy. She was just hot. Whereas Sherri kind of has this, like, I don't know, like she sounds like she could be an animal, And I don't know if she's trying to find fucking Warrior's like base instinct or something, but it was eye-opening to sit here and watch a manager of another guy literally like mind blow literally the World Wrestling Federation champion. I mean, and for someone like Jason, who's 9 years old, it's probably, were you with your dad or whatever? You're like, hey dad, what are they doing? Nothing. Shut up.
I was actually with my uncle.
Oh, your uncle. Okay.
Yeah.
So your uncle's probably like, shut up, just don't worry about it. It's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's like it's for 1991, and you're right, JR. And we will document this as we go through the year. They definitely did a minor envelope pushing, and it's not like they really had competition in that aspect. I mean, yeah, you had WCW, but they were doing nothing like this in 1991, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and it was enough where you could play it off to kids or others that she's just, kind of just flirting and begging them, and like it doesn't have to be that she's about to, really give him the favors, like Bad News Brown hinted that Miss Elizabeth did for Randy Savage back in 1988. But it can be taken both ways. So they found a cool little middle ground where if you're old enough and you're kind of in the know, you can be like, oh, okay, this is kind of hot, something's going on. And if you're young enough, you can just think, well, Sherri's just working him over, and begging for the title shot. It wasn't super clear, so. Anyway, it was a good segment. Definitely adds a little heat and sets up what's to come ahead. And we're going to move on to our next match now as the Big Boss Man takes on the Barbarian. Interesting match. The two guys are really pieced it together in the ring as solo acts in 1990. Boss Man came into his own starting early in the year. Barbarian as well, when him and Powers of Pain, really, they both kind of split off around the same time. And we've seen them both work some pretty good matches since. Of course, Boss Man is continuing his feud with the Heenan family. Barbarian is next in line. The grudge feud continues. Good pop for Boss Man as he comes out. Barbarian slow rolls getting going. Boss Man paces like an animal. Barbarian comes in and lands some stiff knees and uppercuts, but Boss Man catches him with a big boot, slugs him to the floor. Barbarian comes up and climbs up and goes to the eyes and then heads up, but Boss Man catches him with the right as he comes down. Boss Man charges, drives both of them to the floor with a nice clothesline. Boss Man goes over and spits at Bobby as Barbarian climbs in slowly. Barbarian hits a nice suplex to take control, then hits Boss Man hard. He ends up with his foot tied in the ropes, hanging out of the ring. Barbarian kicks away until the ref frees him. Barbarian shoves Boss Man to the post. Bobby kicks away at him. Back inside, Barbarian hits an impressive backbreaker for 2. Hooks a tight bear hug. Boss Man fires out of the hold, but Barbarian clubs him down and keeps control. He goes to a bear hug again, but Boss Man bites his way out of it and then catches Barbie with an enziguri for 2. Boss Man misses a charge to the corner. Bobby gets 2 on a roll-up. Boss Man catches a charging Barbarian and hits a stun gun for a good near fall. Both men collide and slowly get up. Barbarian is up first. He goes to the top, cracks Boss Man with a flying clothesline for a close 2, but Boss Man got his foot on the rope. Barbarian charges again, and Boss Man hits a Boss Man slam, but delays in covering him and only gets 2. Barbie hits a right hand and stuffs Bossman with a jumping pile driver as he's really emptying his offensive chamber now. Barbie goes up to the top, comes off with a high cross body, but Bossman rolls through for the win and a huge pop. This was a great finish and a hell of a match. Both guys really busted their ass, showed off some cool offense and great selling. The ebb and flow late was nice, and the finish was really tight and well done. An exhausting, hard-fought win as Bossman knifes his way through the family. This is a really cool match. It's not one you'd expect to pop like this. And I remember even watching this live, which was the first pay-per-view I ever did watch live, I should note, being surprised, too, at just how good this was. You were kind of, when it started, you're thinking, all right, whatever, Bossman, just make quick work or whatever. But it ended up being real good. Scott, I really dug this one. The Bossman's rolling. He's really feeling it now as a character and in the ring, becoming pretty high up the ladder as a face. And Barbarian's doing well in this role.
This was tremendous. Your match time 10:04. And I gave this. I also gave this 3 stars. It's been 7 months since Bossman effectively turned face, or maybe a little before, or later, I should say. But he has really, by leaps and bounds, become such a good worker. And I mean, if we talk about in-ring, we can even go further back to '89 when he was still a heel and he was feuding with Hogan, and he had good matches there. I had one of them on my top 100 list. And the cage match on Saturday's Main Event, and he's been really just busting his ass and trimming the weight down, and he's not carrying a lot of excess gut, and he's been amazing. And the Barbarian, I mean, listen, I'm watching him right now on one of my Chrono watches in '85 Mid-Atlantic with Paul Jones. The guy just knows how to wrestle, and I wish he could be appreciated more. And I said that to him. I met him at a convention a few years ago. I said, listen, can I just say that, like, I know a lot of guys think you're just, a lot of fans probably thought you're just some big power dude, but I thought you were a really good wrestler, and he appreciated that. He was very cool. He'd still kick the shit out of me. He'd still kick the shit out of anybody right now, but he really deserved more credit for the in-ring talent that he was under the circumstances of his character and just kind of, his look and everything. And put them together, and you've got 2 guys that really wanted to show off their abilities when coming off a match with 4 small guys. And, where the big guys in the WWF at the time were, Earthquake and Hogan and guys, that I don't want to say lumber, but, more power moves and moves slower and stuff. And this match really didn't do that. Yeah, it was a power match, but it definitely wasn't like a slow lumbering power match. I was very impressed, and the crowd loved it. And you were right, JR. I think we're going to have a good year of crowds, particularly in places that you normally don't expect good crowds to be in. I think it's going to be pretty evident that 1991 is going to be one of those years that the WWF really came back to life after maybe a lackluster, for the most part, 1990. But anyway, here, Jason, you've just got 2 power guys who really wanted to just prove themselves and say, hey, we could wrestle just as good as these 4 quick guys in the opener. And I think both guys proved that here.
Yeah, this was the epitome of a great Haas match. Bossman was just on fire at this point, just going on all cylinders, and Barbarian was just able to keep up with the pace. I know you guys always mention the Warlord as someone who could have challenged the Warrior in late 90, but I say I think it should have been the Barbarian, because the Barbarian is leaps and bounds better worker than Warlord is on his best day. And he has a great look, and he can clearly go in the ring just based on this match with the Bossman alone. A couple notes from the match I had. Is there anyone who throws a better worked punch than the Bossman? Because they just look and sound so crisp all the time.
Probably Jerry Lawler, but no, Bossman's definitely up there. Yeah,
Matt Hardy too. Matt Hardy does a good one. Yeah. Did anyone catch Bossman doing an enziguri?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was awesome.
He was really, both guys in this match really opened it up. I mean, they were busting out all sorts of stuff. That spike power drive by Barbarian was really nice. And the Bossman enziguri showing off his agility, which obviously has, shoved into his repertoire as well. So
yeah, it was very good. I actually gave it 3.5 stars. Surprisingly, when I was a kid, I didn't like it because I'm 9 years old. What do I know? I thought it was boring, but as an adult, I can appreciate it more, and I really started to like it a lot in my early 20s. Really great match.
And it helped too. The crowd was so into into the feud, into Boss Man at this point with the Heenan stuff. So there's a lot of heat naturally in the match, and then they fell in line with just how good it was once they got going too. So
yeah, he was on fire. He was on another level at this point. I would put him at like maybe number 3 babyface behind Warrior and Hogan at this time.
Yeah, it depends where you put Jake, probably.
Yeah, Jake.
Jake's.
I would say they're kind of even.
Yeah, I'd put him and Jake even. I'd say he's top 4 at the very least.
Upper mid card.
Yeah, I mean he's surpassed Dusty. Obviously, his Dusty has tumbled down the card.
Duggan.
Yeah, he's probably above Duggan. No, yeah, he's there. I'd say Duggan, Bossman, and Jake round out the top 5, however you want to do it, with Warrior and Hogan.
That's accurate.
All right. Sean Mooney's with Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan. Adnan rants a bit, says, Sarge says, if you think there's turmoil in the world, just wait until he heads to the ring to face the Ultimate Puke, defeat him to become champion. He'll be everyone's new leader. He has integrity and someone to look up to and respect. Warrior's days and hours are no longer numbered. He has seconds now. The Puke is dismissed. Slaughter's just fucking drenched in sweat here, by the way. But this is a really good final promo. Gene's then with Warrior, says Sarge's orders fell on deaf ears. He only takes orders from his warriors that ride on his back. Warrior says Sarge's desert foxhole will lead him to defeat. His warriors will never lower themselves to look up to Sarge. The only one that they'd follow him are those that are demented. It's a great line that makes me laugh. The only ones that'll follow you are those that are demented. He walks in Ultimate Champion and will walk away as the Ultimate Victor. This is a more lucid and calm promo from Warrior than we're used to, but he's obviously feeling the pressure and a bit uneasy here. Do you guys have any comments on the promos before we get to the big match?
My fiance, after watching the Warrior promo, looked at me and said, "What the fuck was that?" You know, as typical as any Warrior promo. But I thought Slaughter was great in this character, and he really sold it. He really bought in, and you can tell, and it made it so much better.
Yeah, I mean, Slaughter really embraced, and we'll document this, JR, between now and we get to WrestleMania, but Slaughter obviously was uneasy about this position anyway, but you'd never notice on camera. I mean, he embraced being...
He wasn't uneasy about the money he was making.
Well, that's true, too. And, I mean, and again, he's been a heel in the past. I mean, he was a heel in Crockett, for most
Not like this.
Not like this, no, but he knew how to be a bad guy in 82, 83, but this was very different. And, yeah, no, of course he was making a killing, but... and as for Warrior, I feel like the lucidity of the promos is not a surprise now. I feel like the last 4 months worth of Warrior promos, maybe going back to like late October, early November, have been very lucid. I think it's Savage, who already is his own crazed nut job promos. I think maybe they told Warrior maybe try to be a little more on point and less of a screamer, because being a screamer is not. Yeah, I think it's entertaining.
It's clear they tried to humanize him, right? I think they realized maybe the Maniac stuff as world champion doing the press and all this stuff wasn't working, or wasn't going to work. And yeah, I think they tried to bring him. They wanted him to be the face of the company. I mean, that's what they pictured him being. So I think they really worked to refine him a little bit, where he still is maniacal and has that side to him. But he also, I think it's little stuff too, right? If you look at it with the, even the face paint, right? Like he does like the little side face paint sometimes instead of the full face paint. So I think there's little stuff here and there that they're doing to bring him a little more human side, even right down to the leather jacket. He goes on Regis. He's got the hair in the ponytail. So like there's definitely stuff that, that they tried to do to make him a little bit more human in this role. And I guess, I don't know, I was kind of envisioning saving the Regis stuff for WrestleMania, but that is a little bit away. So, and right on cue, they're actually showing the package for him on Raw. So I guess we can want to talk about real quick the passing of Regis Philbin. Obviously, a really legendary entertainment figure and a lot of ties to pro wrestling. I mean, him and Kathy Lee always had wrestlers on. Big role at WrestleMania 7 that we'll talk about. Was always a friend of the sport. He would have been a natural, honestly. If he wasn't as big in the other role as he was, if he wanted to be like in the wrestling business, he would have been a natural in that role too. But WrestleMania 7, one of the most iconic, and they're showing all the clips now, all the wrestlers they had on and how into it he was. So obviously sad to see him go. He's not in the Hall of Fame, right?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't.
I'm guessing he'll be added, is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Hall of Fame's very, very fluid at the moment. But quick thing about Regis, though. You were saying about, the WrestleMania 7 moment's great. And he obviously got to do the main event because I remember what a comeback at the end of the match, which we'll talk about when we get there. But just quickly kind of diving out for a second, Regis really was one of, and that show was one of the biggest catalysts of mainstreaming the Attitude Era, because I mean he had Stone Cold on a ton, he had The Rock on a ton. He might have had Foley on once or twice, and maybe by 2000 he probably had Triple H on. I mean he definitely helped legitimize the Attitude Era and maybe kind of made it safe, even though, if you're a wrestling fan, you watched obviously 98, 99, 2000. Yeah. There was some stuff that probably wasn't safe to watch. But Regis, I think did a great job of kind of making it safe. Like, if Regis likes it, then maybe it's okay to watch. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, well, maybe not. But or depending what you're watching. But Regis definitely was a friend of wrestling. I'm sure he knew Vince well, or well enough anyway. But sad to see him go. 88 years old. And
obviously had a great relationship. To have all those guys constantly flowing in there, obviously was a fan. And we even talk about obviously second run. Once that ended, I guess he was still doing Regis and Kelly when he did Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which was just a massive. I think it's forgotten because there's been so many game shows and reality shows since, but that was a massive, massive show.
Oh yeah,
in the early 2000s. Just the bonkers numbers. Every night they had it, and just everyone was tuning in. It really did, it really almost reinvigorated, I think, the game show industry in a way. They had really just become more focused on syndication and even the Game Show Network, but that brought it back as a primetime viable thing. I don't think there were many to that point, late in the 90s or anything. And I remember even having the computer game and playing it all the time. It was a big deal. And he's such a classic personality. So it definitely sucked. I mean, he was older and all that, but it sounds like he, it's kind of went quick and that was it. But he had a great, great run. Jason, any quick thoughts on Reg?
Yeah, just echoing what you guys said. He was awesome. He was always fun. He was you could tell he was into it. Always having the guys on the show. And it's sad to see him go. It made me want to watch that episode of How I Met Your Mother he appeared with the world's greatest hamburger. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's really fun.
I could count on one hand the number of episodes of How I Met Your Mother I've seen.
Sad.
I would say happy. All right, who's not happy is the champion, because he's got a tough match ahead of him. Ultimate Warrior taking on Sergeant Slaughter. We've talked all about the build, and here we go. Big time title match. Slaughter's quick ascent has reached his apex. Suddenly he's a top heel player out of nowhere. Scott, think back to SummerSlam, right, where he was when he did that Brother Love show. It seemed like, all right, maybe a mid-card heel coming in and kind of redoing his old drill sergeant gimmick. But thanks to the Iraq War, he quickly moved up the ladder, and here he is doing some of the best work of his more recent days. Great promo stuff. He's also slimmed down a bit, I've noticed, here and going forward too, so he's getting into shape for this run. Gorilla says Slaughter's points do not represent the Dirty F, Arab Americans, or the majority of those around the world, so they're really pushing that talking point this weekend. I think they knew maybe things are about to blow up. Piper says it's America. Sarge has the right to say what he wants. Good Sergeant Adnan entrants are focused and plotting with that drum beat. As annoying as that drum beat is, it's kind of the perfect theme for him, because it just plods along with the
sticks
with the
in
song. And he even walks to the beat, just plodding down the aisle with Adnan. Big pop for Warrior. He's got his red, white, and blue gear on. He charges in, mows down Sergeant Adnan while his music is blaring. He cleans house on them, tears up the Iraqi flag, and the crowd is going insane. Adnan walks to the back as Warrior pummels Slaughter using the flagpole and flag. Piper and the fans are loving it all as Warrior shoves the flag in Slaughter's mouth. Piper tells Sarge to eat some sand, and Gorilla says he hopes he chokes on it. Warrior keeps using the flag to choke away and shoots Slaughter hard to the corner. He flops to the mat. Warrior follows with a clothesline, shoots Sarge again, and this time he flies to the floor. Sherri comes running out as Warrior fetches Slaughter and keeps choking with the flag outside. In the ring, Warrior hits the ropes, but Sherri hooks his foot. Warrior turns around, chases Sherri down the aisle. And here's the payoff from earlier as he gets ambushed by the Macho King. Savage grabs a giant lighting rig and slams it down on the Warrior. Warrior slowly crawls back to the ring as the ref keeps getting the count stopped by Slaughter. The crowd is chanting USA. Warrior eventually gets to the ring, and Slaughter starts to batter the back and the head. Warrior comes back with a clothesline in a cool spot as he won't give in. Slaughter recovers and goes to a bear hug, holds on to that for a while as Warrior's flailing. Warrior works free, but his back gives out. That allows Slaughter to get right back to battering it. Sarge drops some elbows, hits a backbreaker, and for some reason he spins Warrior around so his feet are under the ropes and then hooks the camel clutch. It's kind of random. The ref is shielded, though, so he doesn't notice it first, and eventually he sees it to force the break, but Sarge acts like he won, and I thought that whole segment was kind of silly and forced. I get that they don't want Warrior to break the hold, but his first Slaughter puts his feet on the ropes and then acts like he won. I don't know. I just didn't care for that. Sarge argues with the ref. Warrior fires up. He shakes off the attack, starts unloading a flurry. The crowd is going nuts. Sherri comes back out. Warrior shoves Sarge down, gets in her face, and yanks her in the ring. Warrior picks up Sherri and just throws her to the floor, but the camera catches that Savage had run out there, so he catches her as he comes down, which is just a great timed bump. I mean, Savage is sprinting down, and right as he gets there, he gets Sherri thrown in his face. Slaughter drives Warrior to the ropes with a knee. He ties up the ref, and Savage comes over, grabs a scepter, and just destroys it across Warrior's head. The crowd is stunned as they're realizing what's about to happen. Slaughter yanks Warrior down, drops an elbow, and covers to win the World Wrestling Federation title and becoming an extremely unlikely champion. Warrior wakes up. He runs off as we get the big dramatic announcement from the Fink that Slaughter is indeed champion. You get the no from Piper as he realizes it. This is a really well-worked match. Simple to the point, very effective. The Savage stuff was woven well and hung over the match heavily. Warrior selling was good. The crowd was so into him. And where the fuck has that been all this time? Like, all of this. It seems to always come up at the end for these guys. But you wonder if he would have won here, if he could have rode off some momentum if they did the rematch at 7. That said, we don't. It gets a little bogged down in the middle, but keeps up mostly. Sarge as the champ is quite the move. His sudden ascent is wild, but we're going full hog into Mania now with the Americana running wild. Jason, I went 2.5 stars, but the package itself is all pretty iconic with the Savage stuff and beyond.
Yeah, I went 2.5 stars as well. Again, Warrior outperforms what he should. It's kind of weird how... At
some point, though, I'm just going to interrupt there. At some point,
sure.
Is he outperforming, or is he just a good performer? Because I feel like that gets said a lot, and the more you think about it, it's like he has so many, and Aaron and I talk about this all the time, but he has so many good matches to his credit. At some point, it's not a fluke or him being carried, right?
I just think it's his overall, the stigma of him in general. Maybe you think of his squashes. I don't know. But with Rude and Savage, it's kind of hard to have a bad match with them.
I don't know. We've seen other guys have bad matches with them. You know what I mean? Like, I just think at some point he should get credit for some of this stuff. I feel like it's always like Warrior got carried, or Warrior surprisingly. But if he's got a better big match track record than like many other guys in the promotion, if you look at his big matches. Like Ted DiBiase and Jake Roberts would kill to have Warrior's resume, and they've had just as many, including each other. They've had matches with so many other really good people. Sometimes they get saddled, sure, but Jake had matches with Rude. Jake had matches with DiBiase. Like they've had chances against each other. But Warrior is a great big match wrestler. If you look at his resume, he rarely disappoints at a big spot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The crowd, I don't think they bought it. At the end, it was very shocking for sure. I was absolutely shocked when I started watching in late '90. I was all in on Warrior. He was my guy. I had a Warrior poster on the wall. So seeing him lose, I was definitely shocked and couldn't believe that happened. And because like you said, it was just kind of Slaughter out of nowhere. And I think maybe people were still thinking they were going to do Warrior Hogan again at Mania. Yeah,
I think there was definitely some question here. Like I remember being pretty surprised.
Yeah,
when Slaughter won, even as a kid, I didn't fully expect that to happen. I think Hogan Warrior definitely seemed possible.
I think the crowd, if you look, they all look pretty shocked that it happened the way it did. But that scepter shot was sick, Scott. And I was happy to see where this would lead with Savage and Warrior. So I think it all played out well in the end. And
I think too, it was a cool match because there are multiple possibilities for Mania right now. Not only Warrior Hogan Slaughter, but Warrior Savage. Like that's a viable main event. They could have easily done Hogan Slaughter on its own just to defend America, whatever, and Warrior Savage for the world title at Mania. Like that's 100% viable given where they are. So that's 3 really, actionable world title matches they could have had on top of that card.
100%.
2 stars for me. It was really, I liked it a lot. 12:46 your match time, so a lot of meaty matches tonight in terms of time to be able to develop and build. And I mean, when you have a match with one big, I said this earlier, when you have a pay-per-view with a huge long match at the end, you can be a little loosey goosey with times. But I want to jump definitely on the bandwagon of Warrior is a big match wrestler. I think we've learned, probably since his death, I guess, that Ultimate Warrior was not a dumb business guy when it came to. I mean, he was, he had his poor decisions, but when it came to in the ring and knowing his limitations as a wrestler, Warrior wasn't stupid in knowing what could stay in his lane, and that's why a ton of his matches are always really good, because regardless of who his opponent is, Warrior always knew to stay in his lane and knew how to make a great match with what he had. And obviously, Slaughter is a different beast than say Savage, who he's wrestled a couple times on house shows at this point, or obviously Hogan, or even Rude. He just knew who was in front of him and who could get a good match from him. So to me, that's all about just the genius of Warrior and knowing what was in front of him and how to work to his advantage to make the fans invested and make it a great match. I mean, maybe his last stink. I mean, you really can't count the honky thing in '88 because that wasn't really a match. Mm-hmm. I guess you could say the last real stinker per se was probably
Hercules.
Hercules at 4, yeah.
I mean, then he was green. That was.
Yeah.
It's hard to even count that. No, his run is really good, and he's been given. Yes, he's had quality talent. He hasn't had to wrestle many bums, but so what? He's held up his bargain. He's delivered.
Yeah.
It's it's a character that connected and worked, and he's almost like a low-key Savage in that, because he had this character that connected so well with the fans, his matches had stakes and the fans were invested in them, and that's just the way it was. Now, I don't think it was to Savage's level because Savage's feuds were always so emotional, but Warrior had this connection where the fans just wanted to root for him. It just sucks that by the time he elevated this, there wasn't anything hot enough for him to dig into, and Hogan leaving just hurt overall. So it was a perfect storm for Warrior's title reign just not to click, but he's like right back on the mountain here. So, yeah, there's a lot there. Yes, deserves way more credit.
And there was something else we didn't mention. This is actually, wasn't it the first title shot? Not just world, just any title shot in Rumble history.
Yeah, yep. Because the first,
yeah,
if you even count '88, the first 3 did not have one. Yep. So that's another one. Yes, the first world title match in Rumble. Yeah.
Yep.
Or any title match.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I guess the IC title. Yeah, because they were always in the show, in the Rumble.
Unless you count the superposed down as a title.
Yes.
Another Warrior gem.
Yes. He was even good doing that.
Yeah.
He sold the Bullworker. But I have to admit, watching this back then, all of the Savage interference, my buddies and I were all like, why do I have the feeling Warrior is going to lose this match? This is just way too much Savage. And even then you're thinking to yourself, well, he said no to giving Savage a title shot. So logic would tell you that he wants the belt on Slaughter, so he can give Slaughter his title shot.
It all made sense. Yeah.
So it all makes total sense. So even then I'm like, something doesn't feel right here. Like, I was all in on. I mean, I was a big Hogan fan at the time, and my buddy was a big Warrior fan, and I was kind of jonesing for a Warrior Hogan rematch at WrestleMania 7. So I was ready for that. I thought this was just one of those bump in the road title matches. And when he actually won, I'm like, holy fucking shit. But again, I think I think Desert Storm had launched, or Desert Shield, I guess. Well, Shield, Storm, one of the two. I think it was Storm. Had launched earlier that week. So, having that on everyone's mind, you're like, yeah, this kind of makes sense, I guess. I still didn't figure out how they were going to fill 100 and something thousand but we'll get more into that on the next pay-per-view show. But yeah, I was stunned that they actually pulled the trigger on Slaughter winning the match, but not surprised, because based on now looking back and watching the match, you're like, this is totally going towards Warrior getting screwed. And he did. Which was
I
a
definitely
shame.
remember, and I remember sitting there being shocked too with Jim. Like I said, first pay-per-view. I've been a fan less than a year, so I wasn't totally like it wasn't clear to me that Slaughter's going to win and fight Hulk. So I remember being like shocked when he won and being upset, like really pissed off that Sergeant Slaughter was the fucking champion.
Yeah, I know, right? It sucked because, the scepter shot, and it was just very well crafted. And I mean, Jay, I don't know if you remember much, Jason, but that crowd was just hushed. Like it had that
all shocked.
Yeah, it had that buzz. Like what the freak is going on here? So yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. That sent shockwaves. Not just I'm sure. I remember a PWI cover, a couple weeks later, just being stunned. I mean, it was crazy. It was definitely one of the biggest upsets in the history of of pay-per-view, and probably in the WWF, maybe next to Sheik beating Backlund, I guess. I mean, in terms of a title win, literally out of nowhere.
All right. In the Hogan era, it's probably the biggest since.
Yeah, in the Hogan era, it's probably the biggest upset.
Since Sheik, yeah.
Yeah. We may not have one like that for a few years in terms of like a bona fide world title upset. 1994 is the one that comes to mind for me, but a great match. Again, great storytelling, and we branch off. But I have to say, JR, I agree with you, and I might have said this in the past on past shows. I think a Hogan Slaughter titleless winning for America thing, I think would be perfectly fine. And then you put Savage Warrior in a title match. I mean, we can talk more about that when we get to that show, but I would have had no problem with that at all. I think that would have been a fine alternative. You didn't have to do this. It adds a little juice, but you didn't really have to do this either. But do you feel like Hogan's, maybe this opens up another Pandora's box, but do you feel like maybe Warrior's title reign got a bump in the last couple of months, that maybe they could have not done this?
I think they could have done him and Hogan at LA and been perfectly fine if they wanted to. I think they were worried about splitting the crowd, honestly, and they didn't want to do that again. I think they wanted Hogan back on top and as a clear face. Now, I think he would have out-cheered Warrior. Like I think they could have just ran it again, face and been perfectly fine. I think Hogan would have probably out-popped him at that point.
Yeah,
but I don't think Warrior was that much on fumes that they couldn't have drawn well. I mean, it's whatever. Hogan Slaughter ends up, I think 7 ends up being like one of the most, is it the highest buy rate or the highest merch gate? Or it's one of those. Like it ends up standing for a while as one of the most lucrative manias that they have. So it's hard to argue with what they did. I don't think Hogan and Warrior ends up being that big of a drop, though, if they do something like that.
Yeah, not at all.
All right, back to the ring for a random match here as the Mountie makes his WWE pay-per-view debut, taking on the Birdman, Coco Beware. This is, of course, Jacques Rougeau's WWF return, which I don't believe we've talked about, right, Scott? Has he been on at all?
No, I think it's the first time we've seen him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about him.
Yeah.
He had been gone since the year before. Royal Rumble 1990 was the last time we saw him, where him and his brother Ray lost to the Bushwhackers. Ray retired in early 1990. Jacques departed for a year, worked around in Canada, and then comes back as the Mountie here. Of course, a client of Jimmy Hart yet again. The Mountie was a corrupt, cattle-prod-wielding member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, often boasted he would always get his man. And they really pushed the Mountie part of his role here early on, like he's working the techniques and he's doing the control stuff. Like they really pushed that. He's went to this, and they basically admit he's Jacques Rougeau right here and there. So I think they pretty much admit that he went to learn these tricks and tips from the Mounted Police to understand how to work this gimmick in the ring. So his debut actually comes on January 26th as the Mountie on Superstars. He hadn't been on since, and I'm trying to see if this is actual first match. Let's see. So on 12/15, they had a vignette promoting his debut. Same on 12/22. Same on 12/23. This may actually be his first match back, which I did not expect. He fought in Japan in December. The Rougeaus had a 1-off. Yeah, this is his last match was literally Royal Rumble 90, and this is his first match back. So a year apart to the show, which I thought he had been on TV already, but I guess not. So
that's crazy.
It's crazy to debut him here. I feel like they didn't really do that often during this era. Actually, debut a guy, not even at a house show. Like he didn't even have house show matches. This is his actual return.
And I just want to say one thing quick here when you're talking about the character. I guess apparently, and I'm looking at one of our old review, the written review, that in Canada he couldn't be called the Mountie.
Oh, yes. Yep.
He had to be called. They had to go by Jacques Rougeau because I guess there was litigation because of it. Announcers would go even so far as to emphasize while in Canada that he did not represent the actual Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I mean, I don't know if you really needed to do that, but so they actually took that position very seriously in Canada.
Yep.
Not that we would think the Big Boss Man was actually a real prison guard, but who knows?
And Rougeau is a known name, honestly. It probably worked in their benefit to promote him as Jacques Rougeau in Canada.
Sure.
Because that's actually a big name. All right, so I thought this was a good spot to have this match. Kind of plug it in here while everyone's shell-shocked. The announcers are trying to figure out what the hell just happened. You don't have to totally pay attention to it, but it's there. Coco dances out first, another pay-per-view for him. Mountie marches out next with Jimmy Hart. Jacques Rougeau back on the scene, like we said. Piper shits on Mountie right away. Gives a shout-out to Captain Michael Nelson. Coco ducks and dodges to get us going, mixing in some stalling. Coco lands a drop kick. Mountie bails out to regroup. Gorilla and Piper really taking out their anger on the Mountie. They're so mad about Slaughter taking it out of this guy. Coco works the arm, lands a hard right as Mountie stooges. Gorilla says Mountie traded with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, learned their techniques, but Piper doesn't think they'd actually condone the actions of this guy. Coco charges, but Mountie ducks and flips into the floor. Mountie batters him as he tries to get back in, even jabs him with a cattle prod. Piper says Mountie needs a therapist. Coco makes it back in, but Mountie grabs a claw hold and shoves him to the mat. Shows off his array of control holds that leads to strikes. Coco gets a sunset flip for 2, but right back to Mountie, just working his control tactics, shoving him to the floor. Mountie stomps around as Piper asks if he's goose-stepping. Mountie cuts a comeback off and he keeps meandering through some offense. Coco gets a neck breaker and then follows with a missile dropkick. Jimmy gets on the apron. Coco swats him down, but he baits in Mountie and slugs away. Coco gets a cross body block for 2, but he gets caught and spiked with a modified chokeslam on a charge, and that was it for the win. Very plotting. I guess it worked as a come-down palate cleanser from the Slaughter stuff, but it was boring. It was cool to see Coco get the pay-per-view match, if nothing else. But Mountie did not show much at all. I thought his whole offense was boring. A far cry from what we've seen out of Jacques Rougeau. But I'm sure it'll take time for him to work into the gimmick. And I will say this. Mountie seems to have a little bit of a rumble through line, Jacques Rougeau does anyway. That's his pay-per-view, right? 89, they have the big 6-man. 90 is his last match. 91 is his return. And, of course, 92 is a big one for him, too. Scott, I went 1 star in this. It's kind of a throwaway time filler.
Yeah, that's all this was. This was just a simple match. Excuse me. Oh, jeez. Mountie's choking me out. Yeah, this was 9-12 was this match. Like, holy crap.
I feel like 29-12, honestly.
I know, really. Good grief.
And these are two, I like these guys, and I couldn't. It was just so fucking boring.
Yeah, it was 1 star. And if you remember, this match was cut out of the Coliseum video release. It got Harley Race Hakud. But it is, if you obviously we all watched it off the WWE Network, and the match is on there, obviously. So yeah, not much to say here. Just a palate cleanser, gives people a chance, or little Jason, to go to the bathroom after the big title match, and just introduce this character and kind of chill things out, because the next match is gonna have a ton of emotion as well. So this was a good slot to kind of spell the crowd after what just happened and to get them ready for what's about to happen next, Jason. But other than that, that's pretty much all this is.
This was always one of my This was always one of my favorite like internet folklore issues. Scott Keith had this review in his Rumble rant, and he had it as Mountie versus Brooklyn Brawler instead of Coco.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I asked him about it. I think when he was on one of our episodes, I talked to him about it. And I think he said something like he didn't see the match, but his roommate told him it was the Brawler. And that's it, because I think he must have had the video version that didn't have it in there. It was something like that. He explains it one of the times we had him on the show. I remember I asked him, but it was always one of my favorite random, like, what ifs. Like, is this some other match that got cut in? Like, how the fuck did he see this match that no one else saw? So it was cool to finally ask him. I'm sorry, Jason. I didn't want to forget to say that, but go ahead, your turn.
I remember seeing this match live, and when I rented the video from Blockbuster when it finally appeared there, I was so confused as to why it wasn't on the tape. Not that it was good or anything. I also gave it 1 star. I thought it was way too long. I think Mountie should have been a quick squash if they wanted to establish him. Coco. I mean, I know you love him, Justin, but Coco's nothing.
Well, and he's not nothing.
I will say this.
He's good. He's just nothing. This match in particular was just Mountie working these boring ass fucking control spots. What are you going to expect? What can you do from Coco? That's not his fault. Coco was saddled here.
Coco at the end was incredibly sloppy. I don't know if you noticed that finishing sequence. Like he kind of muffed the leapfrog, and he just didn't look like normal Coco would. I do want to say I was a bit impressed that he did the missile dropkick and then landed on his feet. I thought that was pretty fun. But yeah, the match, like you said, it was a little shade over 9 minutes. It felt like it was like 20 minutes long. Incredibly boring. Not the same Jacques Rougeau that was a part of that fantastic tag team. At least not yet.
Not yet. Yep. All right, we're about the midway because we take a little intermission here in the action. We get a bunch of interviews and stuff. So why don't we take a break? Come back. We'll do some pop culture. We'll do our Royal Rumble match. We got one other match too. We'll do some awards and we'll wrap things up. Be back in I don't know 30 seconds.
Because
Yacht Rock Summer continues.
Yes.
How did you ever love me? I can't work it out. Don't you know that I love you? Don't you know that I care? Winter gone.
Hey, this is Headbanger Thrasher, and you're listening to what the fuck is it? The Place to Be Podcast, so you better not miss it, because I'm on it.
All right, Nation, we are back talking Royal Rumble 1991. Let's quickly talk about what's going on in the world of Place to Be Nation, PTB and Wrestling Network. I want to thank you on behalf of myself and Scott, our loyal listeners, for it's you that has put the PTB Wrestling Network feed over the 1 million download milestone. Continued thanks to your support, and let's keep it all up. And, of course, we got a little banner from Podbean, which was cool, and over 1 million downloads since we started this in February of 2011, Scott.
I wanted to take the time, JR. I talked about it on the Saturday special this past week and mentioned it briefly on Jenny and the Gems too, but I wanted to talk about it with you, obviously, because you and I did this together from the beginning. And just think back, like when we were, think about, I always use this as a marker, obviously, but think about like WrestleMania 29 when we're in the parking lot with everybody. And think to ourselves, at that point, we was just like you and I. That was it.
Yeah.
It was just you and I minding the store, And then, we talked about the website. We met Brad and all that stuff. And then we expanded, and you started Kevin with Kevin Show, and I started Main Event, and then all these other guys, and then it just expanded, and it grew to what it is now. And again, I said this on a couple shows this past weekend. Not only do I thank you, of course, JR, because you've always been not only a wonderful friend, but an exceptional leader with me. Together, we built this from just us, but also our listeners who, without you, there'd be no million downloads. So we thank you for sticking with us through all the ebbs and flows and shows and again, I want to thank those that have joined us, all the great talent that has come on here, JR, besides you and I, and Aaron and all the great shows, Nate, Steve, Jenny, just everybody that has done that's on here now, and Drew Wardlaw and all these guys, and Ryan Everett, and just everybody who has gained such confidence, who maybe didn't think about ever wanting to do a podcast or thought they could do one, 5 years ago or whatever. And Jason over on the Pop Feed, like it just having the confidence to actually do it, and now so comfortable and being part of this family means the world to me. Considering the world kind of blows right now, it's nice to smile at that, because 9 straight years, it's a long time, but But it meant a lot to me to see that email from Podbean last week. And so thank you, JR, and thank all you listeners, and thank you, Jason. You've been around forever. And thank those that are taking part in it now. And let's keep trucking ahead. 1.5 million downloads. That would be in 5 years. Because 2 million would be 10 years. And I don't know what the fuck's going to happen in 2030, but hopefully
we'll
we're
probably
still
be
here.
just starting 1993 is my guess.
Yeah, we talking.
Well, no, that was well said, and I echo all that. I don't think there's much more I can add to that. I will say, Scott, it started with just me and you, and now we got a bunch of Brits talking about chicken salad or some shit. But we've come a long way. We've come a long way. All right, here's what's on the feed right now beyond our show. Jenny and the band are back together for a new episode of Jenny and the Gems with the Superstars on the Superstation, February 1986. Also had a brand new Body Press Your Luck. Ryan Everett took on a couple fools, John Kesselika and the man, Calvin Kroll. See if,
do you have anybody left?
Yeah, we got a fun one lined up for episode 10. So
good.
But check it out. Look, even if you know the outcome, it's still really fun listening, especially playing
of course
along
it
at
is.
home and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely.
Newest ride down that highway to the Impact Zone. Logan and Jacob with Matt Souza and Ben Locke to break down episode 3 of Impact and the second anniversary show, pay-per-view 100. On debut episode of NWA Crock and Roll, Sean Kidd, Dr. G, and Callum McDougall, joined by Jacob Williams to look at Saturday night NWA shows from April 1985. And you and Dr. G on the NWA Saturday special that you mentioned were joined by the host there, Sean Kidd, to discuss the beloved NWA Television Championship. Check out the Pop feed, too. Some great shows here in Pop, Laugh in Theater, Great Debate, Glenn Butler Podcast, Our Spectacular, Diamond Conversations, Wizard Thing on TV, Piece of the Action, and Blockbuster Rewind, plus more. Subscribe today while you're on Podbean or iTunes or Apple, wherever the hell you are, and you're subscribing to feeds. Subscribe to 2 more. Jenny Smith's Jenny Position, Home of Geek and Sassy, Talking Pop, Freak Out Drive-In, Brother Sister Rewatch Podcast, which just wrapped up season 6 of The Office, and The Journey Through Infinity, Scott. We'll be having Guardians of the Galaxy coming up very soon on that, so check it out. And finally, I'll talk a little bit more in depth later, but be sure to subscribe to the North-South Connection Podcast Network. Myself, Chad Campbell, Aaron George are your stewards there. Wrestling Warzone, No Holds Barred, Extreme Three-Way Dance, Jeff Learns Wrestling, Ruthlessly Aggressive Podcast, TNA Never Dies, and much more. Also kicked off our 2020 stretch project, determining the greatest WCW match ever. You have until New Year's Eve to do your research, promote your matches, and build your list. Conversation and rules at facebook.com/GWCW matches or the Pro Wrestling Only message board. Also on our social media, sign up for the greatest song from a movie tournament, or like the pages today, or like the PTB and tournaments page, one of those two. That tournament has kicked off. We're in round 1. You can vote for your favorites each and every day. PlayStation.com, new voices, fresh takes bring you articles and topics of world of wrestling, sports, and pop culture. Trent SmackDown on Fox Report, The Week in WWE with John Crow, Post Perspective, Ben's Unpopular Opinion, Matt's Disney live-action journey, and, of course, Glenn Butler's Wednesday Walk Around the Web. Shop with us at PlayStation.com/Amazon. Now, Scott, you talked all about how it was just in us kind of kicking off this feed, and, the show obviously can never do without each other, and could also never do love without you. Love will just never do without you, Scott. And that is the number 1 song in the nation this week. Janet Jackson, of course, sings that. It's Jackson, If You're Nasty. And that brings us to Scott Criscolo's Pop Culture Corner.
Thank you, JR, and thank you, everyone. And we are now in 1991, so I do think, JR, after we dealt with a lot of kind of middling one-hit wonders of junk in 1990, I have a feeling we're going to have a fun 1991 when it comes to music. I have a feeling we're going to get some good songs. And number 1 is a tremendous one because Janet's fucking amazing. Love Will Never Do Without You at number 1 by Janet. Number 2, another one, Justify My Love, that controversial music video by Madonna. Number 3, High Enough by Dan Yankees. Tremendous album. Ted Nugent, Jack Blades, Tommy Shaw. Tremendous band. Almost like an all-star, almost like the Bad Company of the 90s.
One of the best music videos ever, if you guys haven't seen it.
Absolutely, of course I have. Tremendous, and a great album, too. The First Time by Surface at number 4. Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant at number 5. Gonna Make You Sweat, CC Music Factory. Yeah, we all know we're getting to some catchy 90s tunes as we get to 1991. Number 7, Play That Funky Music. Terribly bad cover by Vanilla Ice. Stevie B's Postman Song, which was number 1 a while back, is down to 8. After the Rain by Nelson. Underrated Brothers at number 9. And number 10, From a Distance by Bette Midler. So there's your top 10 this week. Came out on this day, Saturday, January 19th, 1991. Let's take a look at what was going on the big screen this weekend. This was the hot top 10 movies. Oh, I hit the wrong link. Top 10 movies of the weekend. Here we go. At number 10, brand new movie that just came out, Freeze, Die, Come to Life, international movie. Number 9, Hamlet, which was the Mel Gibson Hamlet, which I actually saw with my high school English class. We actually went to the movies and saw Hamlet. Number 8, Green Card. Number 7, Lionheart. Not that guy. Number 6, White Fang, another Disney movie. Number 5, Flight of the Intruder. Number 4, Dances with Wolves. Number 3, Kindergarten Cop. It's not a tumor. Number 2, Awakenings, great movie with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams. And number 1, still number 1, JR, with $196.2 million, Home Alone.
Beast.
Still number 1. Big beast.
I showed that to the kids the other night for the first time, and it holds up. I mean, they loved it. And my daughter's been like obsessed with it since we watched it. It's a great movie. I mean, the comedy itself holds up. No matter how many times I've seen it, I laugh out loud multiple times throughout. It's a great movie.
Have you shown the part 2 yet?
No, she wants to see it. My son's got it in his head that he doesn't because he thinks he'll be afraid, but I think he'll be okay. So we'll see. Although, as we were watching
show him the president.
As we were watching it, it was funny. Like we were kind of like, oh, like we didn't remember just kind of like how mean some of the kids were, and some of the, like obviously you remember, look what you did, you little jerk. But the rest of it, like they really are like assholes in the first like 10 minutes of that movie, and then the filthy animal stuff. Obviously, my son said that for like 2 straight days after we watched it. He just kept saying filthy animal to everyone. So we'll see. We may wait a couple weeks on 2, but we are going to watch it. And I don't remember 2 as much. Like I haven't seen it as many times as 1. I know it's good, but one really to me, 1's the best.
Oh, it is. I saw 2 like a month ago. I remember it was on and I watched it, and I liked it. I actually realized I hadn't really seen it before then, and I like the second one. But the second one is just different.
As far as sequels go to big hit movies, like it's pretty good. Yeah.
You look at that secondary cast of like Tim Curry and Rob Schneider.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
as working at the hotel. I mean that adds another element that I thought was really fun.
And the Pigeon Lady was a very nice kind of lateral move from the old guy in the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a good move. So anyway, this Home Alone's though still kicking ass and taking names in January of 1991, still making a ton of money. Good news, JR, no football picks. So we're good for another year. This is the off week in between the championship games and the Super Bowl. Last week, of course, the Bills crushed the Raiders 51-3 in the AFC Championship, while Matt Barr's last-second field goal stopped the three-peat of the Niners. Giants won 15-13. So next week in Tampa, Super Bowl 25, the New York Giants and the Buffalo Bills. I wonder who won that game. Bet you it'll be pretty good. I feel competitive. I don't think the Bills are going to score a ton of points. We'll see.
That was the first Super Bowl I watched live.
Oh, there we go. I lost a ton of money on that game. Anyway, let's go to the hardwood NBA basketball. 9 games on this day. Are you an NBA guy, Sherman? Do you have a team?
I used to be. I was a Knicks guy. But I haven't watched in a very long time.
Oh, okay. Well, the Knicks won on this night. They beat the Sixers 112-97. Let's see, JR, your beloved Hornets, not a good night, losing 110-95 to the Mavericks, even though Johnny Newman had 40 for the Hornets in that game.
Almost had half their points.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? Was he the high scorer in that night? Let's see. Yes. Even though in a 107-96 win over the Clippers, PC alum Otis Thorpe with 31, right? He went to PC, right? Otis Thorpe? Yeah. 31 points for the Rockets in that game. Celtics did not play, and the Lakers did not play. The Celtics, however, have the second best record in the league at this moment, 29-8. They lead the Atlantic. Bulls finally kind of caught fire, and they lead the Central at 27-11. Spurs lead the Midwest at 26-10. And Portland still with the best record in the league at 33-7. The Lakers are 25-11 in second place. There were no hockey games on this day for some reason. Saturday night, was this All-Star weekend?
Could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, might have been All-Star Weekend.
Too bad Peter wasn't here to bore us with the details on it.
I know. I'm trying to be good and not do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. I just want to say, I promise, it won't take long. But let's see. So today was the 19th. Let me go to the 20th and see if the All-Star game was the next day. Because that's weird that on a Saturday there would be like.
It had to be.
Yeah, that's odd.
Oh, it was 90? No, it wouldn't have been a Winter Olympic year. So.
No, they didn't do that yet. No, they didn't do that yet. I don't think. But let's see. Find games. January 20th. No, they still don't have any games the next day, maybe? Well, that Monday there was a game, so it must have been the All-Star game. In any event, no hockey on this evening. And with that, we are done with this week's Pop Culture Corner. Back to Miami. JR, what do we got?
We got Sean Mooney. He's with Randy Savage and Queen Sherri. Mooney says, Warrior would be champ without Savage. Savage says he's always been champion and the greatest of all time. Let Warrior cry. You should have committed to him being number one contender. Now he'll go after Slaughter. We are banging on the door, and Savage and Sherri book it out of there. We get Gorilla and Piper catching us up, chatting for a minute. Then we go to Mean Gene, who's with General Adnan and Sergeant Slaughter. Sarge says when he says he'll do something, he'll do it. He's the new champion. He'll reach out and take whatever he wants, just like he did with the title. Now everyone can start respecting him. Unlike anyone else in the military, he has no boundaries. He'll crush and defeat whoever he wants. He's just begun to fight. Everyone's dismissed, and he is the new champion. Adnan rants, they hug, and a good first promo as champion for Sergeant Slaughter. Gorilla and Piper then chat some more. They're not pleased. We then get some awkward comments of kindness and goodwill from various fans to our troops overseas. Gorilla and Piper still triggered, talk about Hogan's postponed Saudi tour. Instead, he'll tour bases around the U.S. for special goodwill visits. We head to comments from our Royal Rumble participants: Jake Roberts, Earthquake and Jimmy Hart, Greg Valentine, Texas Tornado, Legion of Doom, Undertaker and Brother Love, Jim Duggan, Rick Martel, British Bulldog, Mr. Perfect, Bobby Heenan, and Tugboat. Gorilla and Roddy Piper then chat some more, talking up the event, the Royal Rumble match, and Piper talks about having a lunch recently with Virgil. And then finally, Sean Mooney is with DiBiase and Virgil. Ted says he thinks Virgil fare well tonight. Everyone wants to know why Virgil does the things he does for Ted and absorb the treatment. Ted says it's because of the almighty dollar. He's bought the best money can buy. Dusty and his punk kid will find that out. There's a bond thicker than blood. That is Ted DiBiase's money. Virgil staring coldly at Ted the whole time. So do you guys have any thoughts on any of the promos or little bits that we talked about here?
The promos themselves, they're typical Rumble ones. More ongoing commentary from my fiance, who's not a wrestling fan at all. She commented on how large Greg Valentine's head is, which made me laugh because I never really looked at it that way.
He's got a giant head and tiny eyes. That's what makes it stand out.
That too.
The Virgil glaring obviously is an omen of things to come. Obviously, they were kind of tipping their head a little bit there. But, I mean, obviously we had seen the chiding of Virgil on national TV, and I think we caught a little bit of it at a house show. So we kind of knew that at some point something was going to give. Just a question of when. Before this match, is this when they were interviewing the people outside about Desert Storm?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
that was the collection of people they found outside the Miami Arena that day was something else.
Yes.
Florida's finest.
Yeah. So, yeah, big time.
All right, back to the ring for our final match before the Rumble as the Rhodes family takes on Ted DiBiase and Virgil. Another chapter in this feud that's been really raging since SummerSlam. Sapphire's gone. Dustin's here to help his dad, making his pay-per-view debut. Ted and Virgil have had their issues, and Ted has been ramping up the poor treatment. And now Piper has been in Virgil's ear lately as well. Ted and Virgil stalk out as we get ramped up. Piper says he's been dirt poor before. He would never do the things like this, being degraded for money. We get all four brawling to start. The Rhodes win that battle and clean out the ring. Ted tells Virgil to get in there and take him out. So he climbs in to start off with Dustin. They tussle for a minute. Virgil lands a cheap shot, but Dustin comes back with a flying clothesline and drop kick to knock Virgil to the floor. We reset. Dustin works Virgil over again, eventually clotheslining him to outside. Ted is pissed. He gives Virgil the business, calls him an embarrassment. As Piper says, Virgil's not used to keeping up pace and intensity in the ring. Ted demands a tag. He steps in and takes over, battering Dustin with strategic attack and talking shit the whole time, working very aggressively to make a point to Virgil. Piper says DiBiase is cheap. He's always had the same tights. That was a pretty funny line. Dustin fires back and Ted gets ping-ponged with elbows from both Rhodes. He slides outside, but Dusty shoves him back in and gets the tag to a pop. Dusty unloads and goes with sleeper, but Virgil makes the save. Dustin tags back in, gets two on a drop kick, but Virgil saves again. Gorilla calls Ted Virgil's master and then walks that back right away and says, oh, well, Ted sees it that way. Ted lands a shot and tags Virgil, who dodges a charge, and Dustin knees the buckle. Gorilla thinks Dustin may have blown out his knees. He crawls around in pain while Virgil kicks and clubs him. Virgil batters the knee and continues to control until Ted comes into the ring. We get some miscommunication. Virgil decks DiBiase by accident. Dustin crawls to tag, and Ted gets pissed and starts beating the shit out of Virgil. Dusty comes in and beats on Ted, but he misses a charge to the corner, and Ted rolls him up for the win. Dusty books it right outside to check on Dustin, then heads right out of Stanford. That's it for them. Fine match, all story here, showing the issues between DiBiase and Virgil, which come to a head late. I thought Dustin looked really good. Got a lot of shine as Dusty lets him take most of the match. And a sad ending for Dusty, who really fell down the ladder after a hot first run. So I went 2-star Scott. Let's talk about the match, and then we'll talk about the post-match.
Okay. The match itself was just a feud continuer. Your match time was 9:57. Seemed much longer than that. The crowd was kind of hot for it, but obviously Virgil not the best worker in the world. But Dustin looked good, and it was sad to see him go. But you could tell Dusty was like your last day when you get the cake and everything and you're about to leave. He pretty much coasted on this one. And that's fine because as we're about to talk about, this wasn't really about them anyway. But a lot of fun to see Dusty one last time. I don't think we were expecting much out of this run, but we'll talk about Dusty in a minute. But it was good to see him. Other than that, Jason, it was pretty much just a kind of a heater for what was about to come and just kind of get this feud over with and finished.
Dusty was definitely just checked out at this point. It's kind of sad. Being a kid, I had no idea about his legacy, about who he was before this, because I didn't really start watching WCW until the mid 90s, and those videos really were not available at Blockbuster at the time, so I didn't really get to know about him until the very late 90s, about the legacy and what he was before his WWF run. Dustin did look great. I don't think Virgil looked bad in this match.
Well, he kind of purposely did if he did. Like they were trying to make him kind of stumble and fumble so DiBiase could keep bitching him out and prove a point. So that was kind of part of it. Even if he did, it was kind of part of the whole point.
Yeah. The match itself, it was nothing. 1.5 just for the match. But if you want to put the whole package together, 3 stars for the whole thing, because what ensues afterward is great, and I'm sure we'll talk about that now.
Yeah, we can get to that in 1 sec. Just really quick. So Dusty's gone. Doesn't make a return for 15 years to the WWF. A little bit less for Dustin. He'll be back in a few, 5-ish or so. And, it's been a run, and, it's fine. We talked about it pretty ad nauseum at our last show, Scott, about how to use him and the way they used him to put these guys over at the end, which is fine. Dustin got some shine. I think Dustin could have been – look, he probably doesn't develop as well if he doesn't go to WCW because of the talent there, but he is someone they could have used in 91 to continue to kind of fortify the upper mid-card. And I think he would have developed just fine if he would have stuck around. And I think they could have used Dusty in other capacity too, like as a commentator and stuff, where they struggle a bit in 91. But he wanted to go back home, and it's fine. He had his run here. It's been a good one, and Dustin got his first taste of major experience. So it was a good use all around. In this match, they're basically just complete afterthoughts. Like it's like the feud is barely on life support at this point. It's all about DiBiase and Virgil. There's very little focus at all on the Rhodes family and that piece of it, looking for revenge, like any of it, like none of that even. It may as well just not even existed, the feud.
When Dustin got pinned, he just like stood up and walked out of the ring. It was just
he didn't even give a shit. He just left, went to check on Dustin, and they took off. Which was probably the direction they were given, is my guess. They were probably told to get the fuck out of there so they could play out the play. All right, so Ted hangs out of the ring. He grabs a mic. He starts talking some shit, saying Rhodes paid the ultimate price tonight. The crowd fires up a Virgil chant. Ted calls Virgil an idiot, demands he gets his $1 million belt and puts it on his waist. Piper says he wasted a day, but he tried. Ted keeps berating Virgil, demanding he do what he's told. Virgil complies, heads in as DiBiase says this is a lesson. Virgil stands and stares at the belt as Ted is yelling at him. Virgil slams the belt to the mat, stares at his boss as Ted starts laying it on real heavy, asking if he needs a reminder about his family and your mother. Virgil breaks down, drops to a knee. Looks like he's about to cry, grabs the belt. Piper pushes Virgil from commentary, saying he's going to eat this for the rest of his life. Ted gloats, says everybody's got a price. And just as he's saying that, Virgil pops up and bashes him with the belt. The crowd goes crazy. Piper's going nuts. Virgil glares, drops the belt on his former boss, and walks off. I mean, this is extremely well done. I don't think you can pick any nits about it. Payoff to a story that lasted 3.5 years. The crowd completely bought in and ate it up. All this pent-up aggression. And they've slow burned it enough over the last month, but not dragged it out, right? The stuff with him and DiBiase really amped up after Survivor Series. So we've had about a month and a half of Ted really putting the skis to Virgil and pushing, trying to humiliate him and call it out. And finally, Virgil snaps here. So I thought it was really well done. Played off the match nicely. Pays off the recent angst. You get the Piper piece of it. And he's going to kind of be his mouthpiece, it looks like, and confidant now going forward. And we'll see if Virgil can translate to the ring at all, Jason.
Yeah, Virgil was fantastic here. The way he sold it, especially when think about your mother, put his hand in his head in his hands. One funny bit, I did like the soda that hit DiBiase square in the back as he's degrading Virgil. One thing, Piper was insane here. He really helped sell this and put it over, and really kind of helped Virgil along in this whole storyline. I thought he shined here as a commentator and really helped push this along, and it really made it special. Scott?
Yeah, no, it absolutely did. 3.5 years of storytelling. People were getting tired of DiBiase's bullshit, and Virgil finally snapped. And you could definitely tell that Piper was very much invested in the storyline and would be even more invested as time would progress, that he would get involved. Because he was. I mean, other than the main event feud, this is about as emotional as Piper got all night in terms of a storyline in front of him. So very well done. Obviously, we're leading towards these two meeting up in March in L.A. And I do think that Piper will. I think Piper made it clear here that he's going to get kind of directly involved and kind of maybe help Virgil along, because as we saw in the match. Virgil is a little clumsy, and whether that's kayfabe or not, and most of it probably is, but I think that's part of the storyline is kind of getting him polished for his battle with his former boss. So, like JR said, nothing to complain about. Perfectly executed. Crowd went nuts. A great way to get them fired up as we head to the last match of the evening.
For sure.
Very nice.
So we'll see where things go. Mean Gene's with Hulk Hogan. Hulk says it's time more than ever to unite the Maniacs. He's not worried about 29 other opponents. He's dedicating the match to our boys in the Gulf and our allies. He will fight and claw his win to win the Rumble with all of the armed forces behind him. He's got more momentum than ever. He'll win tonight. Gene gets word that Slaughter has just defaced the flag, but it could just be a rumor. Hogan says Sarge stealing the title is one thing, but if he defaced Old Glory, that would seal him for good. Whatever happens, Sarge's reign will be just like Hussein's reign over Kuwait, just temporary. Hogan got mangled trying to say Hussein, just like I did. But he recovered. Good promo to tease what could be ahead for the Hulkster. Head to the ring for our Royal Rumble, our third official pay-per-view Rumble, fourth overall. And Bret Hart is out at number 1. A rise. I thought it was a wise, shrewd choice to showcase him on the doorstep of a potential singles push. Gorilla runs down the rules. Dino Bravo wobbles out at number 2 with Jimmy Hart. Gorilla says Bravo wouldn't spend 10 cents to buy a different number. They have a back and forth basic stuff until some teases. With some teases, until Greg Valentine is in at number 3. Hammer goes right at Bravo. They throw down, upsetting Jimmy. Hammer walks over and yells at him, but Bravo slugs him from behind and kicks away. Hammer comes back and duffs that stiff-ass Bravo out, shoves Jimmy to the floor as well for our first elimination. Bret works over Hammer as Roma is in at number 4. Roma and Hammer double up a bit until all three battle. Until Texas Tornado is in at number 5. Tornado wrecks Roma and then helps Bret with Hammer, showing a lot of energy. Martel comes out to number 6 to booze. He goes right at Bret Hart. Those 5 trade off, taking turns laying in strikes, trying some eliminations. Tornado and Bret work together a lot, and it's a fun little team when you really think about. Saba Simba's in at number 7 as the ring is filling up. It's good action, but nothing standing out, just basic stuff. Bushwhacker Butch whacks his way out at number 8 as the crowd is super into everything going on right now. Martel and Saba Simba tussle into the ropes and both slip over, but Martel hangs on and Saba hits the ground, and that's it for him. Jake runs down to number 9, goes right at Martel, and they trade blows until Jake takes over and batters him with the crowd going nuts. Martel gets close to getting knocked out, but he hangs in. He's able to slip back inside. Hercules is in at number 10, and he helps Roma against Butch right away. So there's our first 10. It's a pretty quick 10. Not a ton happens, honestly, besides Jake and Martel going at it. Jason, any thoughts on this first third of the match?
The pop for Jake was fantastic. The crowd was really into him and really wanted him to rip Martel apart. Besides that, there's really not a whole lot going on. I do remember Tornado getting quite a reaction from the crowd too.
Yeah, he's still pretty over quite a bit.
Yeah. Besides that, not a whole lot going on. The crowd could not care about Saba Simba at all.
I don't think anyone did. This might be it for him too. I meant to check quick. I don't think he's. Scott, any thoughts on this first start? I'll look quick if Saba. I think he might be going after this.
Yeah, I mean, not much going on here. Dino, you could tell Dino's starting to grow his dark hair out because he was like nobody gives a shit anymore. I agree with you 100% about Brett coming out first. I think it's a good spot for him. Also, good spot for Valentine coming out third, trying to get his pseudo face push going. I don't know if he was still technically a heel, but they were kind of like leaning towards it at that house show.
Kind of getting there. I feel like Superstar something might have happened with them where Hammer, or maybe it's right after this. They definitely been teasing it.
Herb's going to tell us that Valentine was getting courted by the CNWA, so to go out the door.
They've been doing the stuff with like there's a prime time. Actually, no, that's January 28th. Yeah, there might not have been much TV wise. This might be the first kind of big blow with Valentine and Bravo. I mean, and Jimmy.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, not a bad start so far. A lot of bigger guys. Tornado did get a good pop. I agree with that. And first look at Rick Martel in his well, not first look, but in his epic Rumble career.
So Saba, this is it for Saba Simba. So we don't see him again at all. Like he leaves after the show. So quick run for Tony Alice.
Speaking of run, my fiance, another fun tidbit that she said, he runs like his testicles are swollen.
They probably are. He's a big boy. Well, actually, probably shrunken if steroids. And Scott, I have confirmed the NHL hockey All-Star Game, the 42nd edition, took place in Chicago on this day. Actually, it was on the Saturday, so that's why I think there was no game on Sunday. The Campbell division beat the conference beat the Whales 11-5. So
okay, there we go. All right,
that's it. It looks like the skills competition might have been. I don't know if they did it the same day or the day before, but anyway,
it's probably Friday night.
That's that. All right, we pick back up. Tito Santana comes out at 11, and he just as Jake is dodging a charging Roma, Paul flies out to the floor. He's done. The ring is filling up. The crowd's staying hot until all the near eliminations. We got our usual Tito Martel tussle. Undertaker's in at number 12. Him and Brother Love march out ominously. Piper calls Love the Cellulite King as Taker casually ends Brett's strong night, lasting 20 minutes for a good showcase, but he throws him out. Taker's mauling guys as everyone else is battering each other. Everyone's very active, which is cool. Not a lot of resting or hiding. There's constant action for everyone. Tornado unloads on Taker, but it has little effect, and Taker just chokes him. Jimmy Snuka is in at 13. Taker throws out Butch. Tornado again has Taker rattled as Greg Valentine pitches in and some strikes as well. Number 14 is a British Bulldog making his pay-per-view return. He sprints to the ring to a pop. Smash from Demolition Lumber's in at 15. We're halfway through. The ring is really filled up now. Constant movement and action. Martel's able to leverage Jake the Snake out. He's pissed, but it's a good bit to keep the feud hot. Hawk runs down to 16. He attacks everyone. Taker's really dominating in here, but the guys are landing shots on him, which is a cool dynamic, just kind of picking their spots. Shane Douglas is in at 17. He goes right at Smash. Taker dumps Tornado right as Hawk chucks Snuka. Tornado has a really good sneaky showing here, lasting a while, constantly active, and going right at Taker constantly. He was one of the more fun parts of the match, I thought. That gets overlooked in this one. A lot of Martel elimination teases. He's hanging in. Hammer's hanging in as well. Number 18 buzzes, and nobody shows up. That confounds Gorilla as to why someone would forfeit their spot. So we'll see what happens there. We get a funny moment as Taker's choking Hawk, and Bulldog comes over to help, and Taker just uppercuts his nuts, which is an odd Undertaker spot, but it's pretty funny. Just slowly does it. Just hold his arm there. Shane Douglas tries to push out Martel, but the model won't give in. Road Warrior, Legion of Doom, I should say, Animal, comes in number 19. As Gorilla says, number 18 is officially now forfeited. The Legion of Doom team up, and they eliminate The Undertaker, but Hawk is clubbed from behind and knocked out right after, which is a great spot. It was a good way to take Taker out, keeps him protected, and gives Legion of Doom a very memorable signature moment in this role by having them take him out. But he has a great showing, bunch of eliminations, and gets taken out by two guys. Crush is in at 20, him and Smash. Double team on Bulldog right away as Martel and Hammer are drenched, battling each other in the corner. A lot of great long showings in this match. Dude's getting lots of time. Scott, we'll pause here. We're 2/3 of the way through now. Any thoughts on that chunk of the Rumble?
I agree with you a lot, completely, that this is definitely one of the most active Rumbles. Even with and there's it's not all small guys. I mean, there's a ton of big dudes in this ring, and nobody's taking a minute off. A lot of movement. So I'm very impressed with that. And again, we're talking about, a halfway decent amount of big dudes. Bulldog looked pretty impressive. obviously the guy that you're looking at the most early on is Taker, because you want to see if they're going to pull, do like he throws 5 or 6 guys out and kind of proves his mettle, as the character that he is. And honestly, there wasn't really a ton of fluff. I mean, Simba and both bushwhackers, I guess Snuka, but a lot of like legitimate guys. I mean, there's really not a lot of fluff here. And I agree that no rest, no wasted movement. I feel like everybody really is hustling. Nobody's like sitting around and, killing time in between, intervals. Jason, everybody seems to be moving actively and working their tail off.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brett had a really good showing. Like Justin said, Tornado had a sneaky good showing that no one really considers. I thought it was really great idea for them to have the Legion of Doom eliminate the Undertaker. It makes Undertaker look really strong, and it really kind of cemented the Legion of Doom in the WWF to be able to eliminate that guy. And I think somewhere a young Scott Friscola was imagining LL Cool J as that was happening. But yeah, that was really good. Does anyone care about Demolition at this point? Either of them?
No, they're such a waste.
It's not even a year ago. The pop they got at the Sky Dome to whatever this is, it's just very sad.
Yeah, they've had a quick fall that we've documented, and yeah, they feel like just non-entities when they come out.
I can't even think of a fall that was so fast. Anyone else? Because that was just brutal.
No, I agree. It sucks. Hopefully they'll be out of the way soon so we can stop thinking about it. How much it sucks. All right, Jim Duggan is in at 21 for a big pop. He comes in on fire. Earthquake out at 22. It feels very ominous. We have 11 guys in the ring at this point, which is pretty filled up for a Rumble. Animal tussles with Quake. He rocks him, but Quake ducks a charge and dunks him out. Mr. Perfect is in at 23 with Bobby. He saunters down. We get a cool battle between him and Duggan before Perfect throws him out. Piper puts over Perfect as the great IC champ. And then we see him and Tito throw down. Hogan's in at 24 to a huge pop. We get the classic moment with the little kid spoiling it before he comes out. That's Hulk Hogan. Hogan cleans house as the crowd is going bananas. Hogan throws Smash out, goes right at Quake. Unloads a wild flurry on him. In comes Haku at 25. Greg Valentine finally gets eliminated. He lasted 45 minutes and a fantastic Iron Man showing. Throwback for him. Tito's still going at Perfect as he and Herc have been in there for a long time. Anvil sprints down to 26. He goes after Herc. Tito's finally eliminated, ending his big night. He lasted long, got a ton of shine on offense. Martel comes close to getting tossed but hangs on. Luke is in at 27. We get a classic moment. Of course, he slides in. Quake tosses him right out and he marches right off, breaking the record for the shortest appearance. Cool moment with Shane Douglas and Perfect trading chops and strikes. That could have been a neat little match. Brian Knobbs is in at 28. A good pay-per-view debut spot for him. We can pause for one moment. Talk about Jerome Sagovich and Brian Yandrusovich. I'm going to butcher those, but whatever. Childhood friends hailed from Whitehall Township, Pennsylvania, put themselves together. They began their careers in the American Wrestling Association in 1985 as the Nasty Boys. In 1986, first started moving up the cards in Memphis, the heel team against the Midnight Rockers. 88, they went to Florida, won 5 tag team titles in a span of 2 years. In Memphis, Jerry Lawler gave them the idea to change their look from tights and boots. And so Sags and Up decided to cover their bodies. They also painted their faces, but they dropped that quickly when they wrestled outside of Memphis. In 1990, the Nasty Boys joined WCW, initially feuded with the Steiner brothers, unable to defeat them. Of course, they had a classic match at Halloween Havoc. And they abruptly left WCW where they were working without a contract. And they were actually, in a pretty big program at the time. They leave abruptly and sign big money deals with the WWF. So the Nasty Boys are on the scene. We talked about Sags in the dark match. Knobbs arrives here. Warlord's in at 29. We'll soon figure out who the missing man was, too, once we see who number 30 is. Hogan dumps Crush, who had a very solid showing, too. Hogan clotheslines out Warlord as a pathetic showing for him at 29. And out comes Tugboat at number 30, and that means Macho King Randy Savage no-showed at the Royal Rumble match. And they pieced together on commentary that the Ultimate Warrior must have chased him off. Douglas gets dumped out. He's had a great night as well. A lot of time front and center. And we're down to 9 guys. Tugboat almost takes out Martel, but the model hangs on again. Tugboat goes right at Hogan and almost throws out his buddy, but Hogan hangs on, follows him across the ring out of vengeance, of course, and dumps his pal. British Bulldog drop kicks out Mr. Perfect as we're whittling down. Martel throws out Anvil, somehow still going strong. Bulldog dumps out Haku. We're down to our final 5. Martel makes a rare mistake, though. He goes up top, and Bulldog crotches him and throws him to the floor with a big punch. That's a massive pop and a super impressive night, a career night Memorable, fun showing for the model. At 53 minutes, he appears. And that brings us to our final four. I'll pause there. Scott, any thoughts on that stretch up to our final four and the night that Rick Martel had?
Rick Martel is an amazing worker. And obviously it kind of begins a trend over the next couple of years of Martel being very impressive in the ring. Hogan got an amazing pop. I mean, he is the man of the moment again for the first time in a couple of years, I feel like. But a good job of kind of stacking the deck in the back end with good heels. Warlord, Perfect, Quake. They definitely knew what they were doing, booking the last 10 guys loaded with big time heels while sticking Hogan in there. Bulldog was actually very impressive too. I actually have I had the times in front of me. Of course, Martel is the all-time record, 50. I have to look that up. But everybody definitely did not take any time off. We said that before, and I'll continue to say it. And I definitely think that Bulldog kind of, we thought he was a little middling when he came back, but he definitely impressed here. Mm-hmm. And is a guy to look out for the future, the future of in 1991. Let's see. All right, so the official times. How long did Bulldog last? Bulldog lasted.
Well, he's that out. Let's talk. We'll do the times at the end and all that. Any other thoughts on that stretch before the final four?
No. It's just very impressive, Jason. Right now that Hogan's hot, crowd's big, bunch of heels in the ring. A good setup for the end.
Martel was fantastic here. Did anyone notice how ridiculously ripped he was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got. I think he knew this was a big shot for him with this run here in this match, and then Jake, the Jake feud and everything going on. Like I think he knew this is a big spot for him. He get a really good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just a little perplexed with their choice of the final four. Like, what was the point of putting one nasty boy in this Rumble? Does anyone else?
I think it was.
I don't understand it.
I think it was. I don't know how last minute Honky leaving was, or Andre was supposed to be in the match. So I feel like he was probably a replacement last minute, and they just had one slot, so they stuck him in. I don't know how far in advance he was announced. I feel like remembering back, he was pretty much like a last minute thing.
I think it would have been smarter to use the Mountie there.
Yeah, no, because they wanted Mountie to go over, and they're pushing him. Like a tag guy in Knobs he's a Jimmy Hart guy, so it makes sense for him to work with Quake, and he can get thrown out. It's not a big deal. Me, Mountie only lasting 3 minutes in the Rumble, kind of.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, Mountie is also a Jimmy Hart guy, and he could make him last to the final three.
Yeah, but it's not like he came in at number 2. I mean, you're in the final 3, but you just came in. And so Knobs only in there for 3 minutes or something, whatever the hell it is, or 6 minutes. I don't think it would have been a super impressive showing for Mountie, and then Hogan would have pitched him. It would have been fine, but I think the way they did Mountie, even though the match sucked, to me, made a little bit more sense.
Fair enough. But, the idea of just not randomly Brian Knobs in the final four in his first pay-per-view appearance.
It was odd.
I mean, when you had Perfect in there and you had, Haku or Warlord, that was kind of offsetting to me.
Yeah, I think it was just the Jimmy Todd.
Even having Martel in the final four would have been better.
Yeah, they could have done Martel. Well, yeah. Unless Bulldog goes out and Hogan tosses Martel, because they wanted to have 2 heels for Hogan. Yeah, the Knobs thing's fine. We could talk about it. So Quake and Knobs team up. They toss Bulldog. We got 3 left. Big time showing for Knobs. They double up Hogan for a bit. Quake hits the splash to quiet the crowd, but Hogan pops up, mows down both guys. Hogan kicks Knobs out. Seems primed, but Quake shakes him off and starts to overpower him. Hogan eventually hooks up and eliminates his rival to win the second straight Royal Rumble. Poses for the rabid crowd. Really fun Rumble. It was well worked and booked, sometimes a bit too crowded, but it was all action all the time, and the crowd loved it. It was cool to see so many veterans get nice nights. Just a well-worked, smooth match. Not too much in the way of starting or continuing stories. Not a ton in there, but guys did get shine. We had some feuds woven in. Hogan wins another one. It looks like he's set up for Mania. It's not official or anything, but he's pretty much all sewn up as the contender. So in 3.5 stars, I thought it was above average Rumble. It's fun to watch, a lot of nostalgia. Just didn't have a ton of story stuff. And like I said, Jason, you got Knobs in there at the end. which I thought was fine enough. It was just to have a Jimmy Stooge, I think, for Hogan. Bravo was gone. Mountie wasn't in the match. So I thought Knobs was the next option, I guess, to have him in there. And this is pretty much the official TV payoff for Hogan and Quake. I don't think they really cross paths on TV again before this feud ends. They do some stuff in the house shows, I think, over the next month or two. But for all intents and purposes, this is it. Hogan gets the last laugh. Finally throws an earthquake to diminish him and wins his Rumble. So, Jason, in the arena, was like Hogan's win, welcomed or?
Yeah, the crowd was really into it. The Hogan rub had not worn off yet. That's to come. I think, though, like, once it got down to the final, like, 6 or 7, it was pretty much a given that no one but Hogan was going to win this.
There's no one else in there.
I think they learned their lesson from 1989 with Big John Studd. You need to have someone who's going to be doing something of significance down the line to win this massive event. So it was good to see Hogan win. He was super hot, the number one guy in the company. Mm-hmm. And I guess without saying, this is like one of the first. They didn't say it, but it's kind of like the winner gets the title shot at WrestleMania. It was the first one.
Yeah, I mean it's not official. Like he doesn't get it because he wins, but
no. But it kind of led into it, I think.
Yeah, they play it up and it's stuff he talks about, just like he did previous year or whatever. Won a Survivor Series, I won the Rumble. It was all the shit he talked about, like in '89, '90. He can trump it again to, push his cause to be the number one contender at Mania. Scott, what did you think overall of the match?
It was a lot of fun. Hogan winning was the right thing to do. I guess this effectively ends the Earthquake feud. He slams him, he chucks him out. So that's pretty much the end of that. Incredible performance by Martel. Incredible performance by Bulldog. I get your point, Jason, about maybe putting Mountie there, but at the same time, you're not going to have him debut here and then look like a putz against Hogan. Might as well just have him at least win a match. And Knobs is a throwaway body. Whatever. They've already been on TV. Doesn't matter. And the crowd is on fire. Hogan clearly now is back on top again. Not that he was never not on top, but he doesn't have to share this. I mean, after what happened earlier in the night, clearly Hogan is the man. He's obviously he held that sign that he got from the fan that said, what did it say? So Hussein and Slaughter will surrender. So even holding that sign, we already feel what is on its way, and that of course wasn't an accident. Best Rumble to this point, I think, in terms of again bodies moving around. Be the first of 2 straight years we'd have Rumbles like that.
It was just a lot of fun. 90?
Yeah, I think a little bit. A little bit.
90's better. To me, 90 is like a top 5 or 6 Rumble ever. This is like a middle of the pack, I would say. I mean, you don't get any real big story stuff. It's definitely a lesser field. Just because they give some of these veterans rubs doesn't mean they were like legitimate challengers. And we could talk about it. Like Martel goes 52-17, Valentine 44, Hercules 37, British Bulldog 36, Tito 30, Shane Douglas 26, Quake 24, Tornado 24, Hogan 21, and Brett 20. And then Crush and Smash both go 18. I mean, so that's a lot of time for all those guys. That's almost half the field going over 20, a third of the field going 20 minutes or more. And then even a perfect 16, Taker 14, Roma 14. So we have some real long stretches in there. It's a differently booked Rumble. I don't think it touches 90 though.
Well, 90's got the drama of and the perfect at the end. I mean, I get that too, but all right, then I'll say second of 3 in a row then, because I really like this Rumble, and I think that
it's fine.
The crowd's hot for it. Guys are very impressive, but yeah, storyline wise, 1990 was definitely better.
And talent wise, that is we talked about 90 is loaded. Like there's so many great guys in that match.
Yeah, and then they all leave, or they're not there in 6 months, or whatever the hell it is. But anyway, that was a good Rumble either way.
All right, that'll do it. Looks like Hogan set up for another big run. All right, let's do our awards, and then we'll matriculate our way out of here. So, match of the night to me was the Rockers versus the Orient Express.
Oh, definitely.
100%.
No doubt.
Cousin Junior for the worst match to me is an easy choice as well. That is the Rockers versus the Mountie. I mean, the Rockers. Coco Beware versus the Mountie. Rockers versus the Mountie would have been much better.
Yes, it would have.
Yeah, definitely Mountie and Coco.
All right, MVP, I struggled with this just a little bit because Hogan was obviously the most over. Slaughter had a big night, Warrior, but like when else are we going to get to give it to Rick Martel? I mean, the Rumble ran through him. He dominated the night. It was his night. He looked awesome in the match. His feud with Jake is hot. Like, I thought he deserved the rub. This is, when you think of this Rumble, you think of him.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'm good with that.
That was initially my option was Rick Martel. I would like to give an honorary mention to the Rockers because this was the beginning of just an on fire year for them.
All right, for the worst work of the night, I don't think anyone actually stunk it out. I mean, Mountie maybe, but I went Dino Bravo just for fun because he sucks.
Yeah, he's terrible, and his hair looks awful too.
I actually went Saba Simba.
Oh yeah, he wasn't much better.
And that run was ridiculous.
Oh, big balls run. All right, best moment. I went with Virgil turning on DiBiase.
Yeah, it's huge.
Agree.
Okay. The Warrior Award for the most juiced up of the night is I went with Bravo. You got Warlord in there too, who could have been there. Martel apparently as well, but Dino was pretty juiced up tonight.
Yes, he was. He was definitely drinking it tonight. Big time.
I'm actually going to go Hercules.
Oh, yeah, he's been massive, too.
Oh, the last couple shows. Well, that one show at the Garden, oh, my God, he was all. He didn't seem as gassed tonight, but you can always put him in the top 3.
All right. Rooster Award for the worst hair. I give it to Coco. I thought his hair was a mess here. I don't know what's got going on right now, but it's like in between, like when he had it real short, but he's trying to do the slick back thing, and I don't know, just he's all over the place.
Yeah. No, like I said, it looked like he was half growing it, and yeah, no, he was a mess.
I'm still going Hercules. His hair is terrible.
Yeah, he won. Steve gave him worst hair last time, so.
It's like a receding hairline, balding at the same time. And
then the mullet. Yeah, the whole thing is weird.
It's just not pretty.
All right, final grade. This is a great show. Red hot. It's fun to watch. It's an easy watch. It's historically important with the Warrior loss. Savage kicking off that feud. You get Slaughter becoming champion. You get Hogan winning the Rumble. You get Martel. You get the classic opener. A lot to like on the show. Crowd is hot. Give it a 7 out of 10.
This was a great show. The opener was good. I still love the Rumble. The Virgil turn. The shocking Slaughter win. This is definitely show-wise one of the best Rumbles, I think. 7.5 for me. I enjoyed it very much. Crowd was good too.
Yeah, I'm going 7.5 as well. We got the best opener for at least, in some people's opinions, 3.5 years. Yeah. The title change, the Virgil turn, the Rumble itself, the hot crowd. There was a lot going on. The USA all the way. You got the patriotism full force here. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. 7.5, easy. And of course, being my first live show, I have to have a little bias, but
of course. All right, and that'll do it. So, really fun show, Jason, for your first ever Vintage Vault. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back in. God, what do we got? Do we have a gap in here, Scott? Yeah, we'll be back in 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks time. This time around, but we'll have back-to-back after that. So we'll be back on track for you. But 3 weeks' time, we'll have an old friend back for the January 91 MSG House Show, just 2 days after the Rumble on the Monday night. So we'll see what the fallout is there. All right, for me, you have the Body Press Your Luck I mentioned, of course, dropped. We have a new TNA Never Dies hitting on Tuesday, and a lot going on the North-South Connection feed this past Monday, today, on what depends, I guess when you listen to it, but yesterday. Aaron's buddy Reg was out, not available to be on for Montreal and Memphis this week, so Jenny Smith stepped in. They had a very irreverent discussion, as you'd expect, but check that out. Also had a brand new No Holds Barred over the weekend with me and Aaron ranked all of the July WWE pay-per-views as we do that monthly. Our Listomania there, so check that out. Also coming this week, we have a new Wrestling Warzone. That'll be out as Chad and I continue our build toward good friends, better enemies. And we'll see what the weekend brings as well. So be sure to subscribe to the North-South Connection. Last week's Ruthless Aggressive podcast was really good, too, with Jimmy Grunberg joining Jake Williams. That was fun. Chad keeps doing the Carolina Dreamin', working through the GWCW project matches from the 80s, Jim Crockett. And we also had an ECW Extreme 3-Way Dance episode, Enter the Sandman 95 with me, Jenny, and D'Amato last week as well. So tons of content, at least 4 to 5 shows a week dropping on the North-South Connection. Scott, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, again, thank you for the, on behalf of JR and myself, thank you for the 1 million downloads on the PTB Wrestling Network. We had a great weekend. This past weekend, of course, the NWA Saturday Special you heard. And of course, Jenny and the Gems. That was a lot of fun. This week, I believe we'll be getting a new episode of With This Ring with Ryan Everett and his lovely wife. So check that out. And this week on the main event, we actually are doing a mailbag, Nate, Steve, and I. So either go to our either the Place to Be Nation Facebook page, the main event Facebook page, or hit me up on Twitter at PTB Podfather. And any questions you have, wrestling, non-wrestling, I don't care. Ask anything. I'm an open book now at this point. So ask whatever you'd like, and we're going to talk about it. And we will also continue our classic TNA pay-per-view recap as we go to the second pay-per-view of 2003. And more Rooserific fun and games that UJR will eventually get to over on TNA Never Dies. You think you're having fun now, wait till you get to the fall. Anyway, follow me on Twitter at PTB Podfather, and follow the site Twitter at Place to Be Nation. A lot of great stuff everywhere, and yeah, a lot of stuff coming up this week.
Yeah, speaking of Twitter, I'm at JT the Pod Guy. Of course, our tournament is ongoing right now for the worst SummerSlam match ever. So you can vote. It's usually around 9 to 10 a.m., somewhere in there. Yep. You can check that out.
Tough picks. It's been tough picks.
Jason, anything you want to talk
about? I was, poking around with the idea of doing a special podcast about the way the coronavirus is affecting the theme parks and how they're operating. Because I did visit Universal last weekend. I think they're handling it very well. But I did want to congratulate you guys on 1 million downloads. That's awesome, and I'm
thank you,
privileged to be a part of it. I love it. Actually, my favorite podcast going right now is No Holds Barred. I love you guys. I already listened to the July Countdown special, and the mention of Trapped again.
Of course.
Trapped.
Headstrong.
But no, thank you. Appreciate it. It's fun. Aaron and I, we promised 12 podcasts this year, and I think we've already surpassed that easily. So we're
100%.
We're rolling hot, him and I. So some good stuff coming, too. We got a cool idea coming for our post-SummerSlam tournament in September. So stay tuned. All right, we're out. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Everyone take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
you